The annual hunting tournament comes to a close, and the nobles gather before their ruler. An aide informs Emperor Aranhrod Aaron Leinster that the time has come to choose the victor. From her throne, Aranhrod surveys the trophies presented. Her attention settles on a fox with a striking red coat, and she remarks on its vivid color before asking who brought it down. A woman in hunting leathers steps forward, identifying herself as the Countess and claiming the prey. Aranhrod congratulates her, declaring the Countess the winner. But the woman politely objects, suggesting the honor should instead go to Grand Duke Rourke for his capture of a rare silver deer. Dismissing the suggestion, Aranhrod explains her judgment. She notes that the Marquis of Bairns boar was handled sloppily, its hide completely ruined. Even Grand Duke Rourke's deer, while impressive, was not a clean kill, as evidenced by the froth around its mouth. The Emperor's decision is firm. The prize goes to the hunter who showed true skill and respect. The Emperor's gaze is sharp as she explains her ruling. She notes that Grand Duke Rourke's deer was intentionally kept alive and toyed with for far too long. In stark contrast, the Countess's fox was flawless, taken down with a single, respectful blow. Aranhrod declares that while other game might be rarer, no hunter showed more skill or deserved the prize more than the Countess. Overwhelmed, the Countess stammers her thanks. Aranhrod then turns her attention to the slighted nobles, Rourke and the Marquis of Bairn, asking if her decision has wounded their pride. Rourke's reply is a picture of perfect loyalty. He claims no one could possibly object to a decision made by the Empire's glorious son, and they can only marvel at her wisdom. But his praise is hollow, and his red eyes betray a chilling coldness that Aranhrod does not miss. After announcing a grand celebratory banquet, she departs. Rourke watches her carriage disappear, his polite mask slipping to reveal his deep displeasure. No matter how hard the Grand Duke tries, Emperor Aranhrod will never truly open her heart to him. Following the exhausting founding festival, Aranhrod sits wearily on her throne. An aide, noticing her fatigue, asks if she is all right. The Emperor explains that the long day has simply tired her out. The aide offers to bring some cold water, and Aranhrod agrees. But before the aide can return, Grand Duke Rourke's hand extends a glass to her. He remarks that she doesn't look well and asks if she's okay. Startled by his presence, Aranhrod is at a loss for words. Rourke suggests calling the royal physician, but she recoils, telling him to just leave. Her voice rises as she demands he go back. In her distress, she swats the glass from his hand, and it shatters on the polished floor. Rourke looks down, a single tear falling, but his red eyes glow with a chilling fury. He offers a quiet apology to his emperor. With a sigh of defeat, Aranhrod admits she behaved rudely and asks for his forgiveness. Rourke accepts, dabbing her hand gently with a handkerchief, but the emperor quickly pulls away from his touch. Thankfully, Duke Silas arrives and offers to escort her out. As Aranhrod leaves with the Duke, Rourke's polite facade crumbles. A gossiping Marquis approaches him, asking what upset Her Majesty. Rourke calmly claims it was entirely his fault. The Marquis observes that despite Rourke's unwavering loyalty, the very reason Aranhrod is on the throne, she remains cold toward him. Rourke's eyes flash a dangerous red. He quietly reminds the Marquis to be careful when speaking of the Emperor, especially in a place with so many ears. He trusts the noble will take his concern to heart, leaving the man shaken. The Marquis can only think of one title for this man, the Emperor's dog. Later that night, Aranhrod sits alone, buried in paperwork as dark ink spills across her desk. A long shadow creeps into Aranhrod's office. Grand Duke Rourke casually announces he let himself in, claiming she was too absorbed to hear him knock. Startled, Aranhrod asks why he isn't at the banquet. Rourke locks the door behind him, replying that he couldn't enjoy himself while she was unwell. He adds that he was delayed because he had to deal with some troublesome people. Aranhrod looks exhausted and agrees she should rest, dismissing him. Rourke nods as if to leave, but in a blur of motion, he closes the distance. He traps her against the desk, sending papers flying everywhere. He promises not to worry her, he'll leave soon. But first, he needs to confirm that his emperor is truly well. His red eyes glow with chilling intensity as he takes her face in his hand. He performs his own unsettling inspection, a forceful gesture that leaves no doubt about who is really in control of the room. In an aggressive move, Rourke shoves Aranhrod backward. She lands hard on the floor, her work papers scattering around her. Looking up in shock, she barely manages to question what he's doing. Rourke just looms over her, his shadow swallowing her completely. He coldly observes that she seems to be prepared for this. Clenching his fist, he admits that he usually tries to be gentle with her, but today, he finds it very hard to hold back. He leans closer, warning that he might be a little rough because the day's events have put him in a foul mood. Aranhrod, still on the floor, confusedly asks what he means. His eyes flash a dangerous, glowing red. He reminds her of the hunting festival. He claims he worked hard to catch something impressive just to please her, then venomously asks if his prize wasn't to her liking. He's twisting the truth, punishing her for praising another's kill over his. Trapped and exhausted, Aranhrod can only turn her head away in defeat. Aranhrod, still on the cold floor, tries to explain herself, stammering that she never meant to belittle his catch from the hunt and apologizing if she offended him. Rourke's glowing red eyes narrow. He mocks her apology, calling her innocent. He cruelly admits that her desperate reactions to everything he says just make him want to torment her even more. His shadow falls over her, and the scene goes dark, leaving her completely at his mercy. Trapped in this nightmare, Aranhrod's mind escapes to a happier time. A single tear traces a path down her cheek as a memory surfaces. She's a young princess again, standing by a moonlit fountain. A kind young man is kneeling before her, gently introducing himself as Enoch. It's the memory of their first meeting, a stark and painful reminder of the man he used to be before becoming this cruel stranger who now controls her every move. The memory takes her back to a moonlit night by a fountain. A young man kneels before her, introducing himself as Enoch from Rourke. He comments on the late hour, asking if she's feeling unwell. A flustered Aranhrod denies it, stammering that she was just practicing her swordsmanship. Realizing she's the princess, she gets even more embarrassed and points her wooden sword at him. But this warm daydream dissolves into a cold, rainy nightmare. The memory violently shifts to the day of his execution. Enoch is kneeling on the wet ground, grievously injured and weak. A frantic Aranhrod clings to him, promising him that it's all right. Through tears, she vows to stay by his side until the very end and swears that she will protect him. Barely conscious from his ordeal, all the young man can do is whisper her title one last time, "Princess." And Aranhrod wakes with a jolt in her lavish, sunlit chambers. The warmth of her room is a stark contrast to the cold tragedy she just relived. She reaches out for the ghost of the man she once loved, but her hand meets only empty air. Later, she sits utterly alone on the vast, intimidating throne. As the emperor of the nation, she supposedly holds all the power, yet she has never felt more isolated in her gilded cage. A maid quietly enters Aranhrod's room. She was worried when the emperor didn't wake up, fearing she might be ill. She offers a light soup, but the emperor, looking exhausted, says she isn't hungry. The maid insists, explaining that Grand Duke Rourke was very concerned. He worried Aranhrod had overexerted herself and was insistent that she eat. This news startles the emperor. She tries to refuse again, but the maid clarifies the situation. This isn't a suggestion. It's an order from the Grand Duke. The fight leaves Aranhrod instantly. Her hand trembles as she picks up her spoon, muttering about Rourke's command. She stares into the soup and sees her own reflection, thinking how truly pathetic she has become. Later, she presides over a council meeting, surrounded by silent nobles. Faced with their unresponsiveness, she can only ask why no one will answer her. Her authority is non-existent, both in her chambers and in her own court. Aranhrod sits wearily on her throne, looking out at the unresponsive council. She wonders if this is what her rule has become, a place where she just talks to herself. Finally, an older nobleman addresses her. He claims they understand her wish to lower taxes, but he urges her to consider the problems this would cause for their own lands. Aranhrod refuses to back down. She reminds them that the famine has persisted for 3 years, and she cannot burden her people any further. The nobles try to sidestep the issue, but Duke Silas cuts in. He challenges her on the logistics, asking how she plans to replenish the imperial treasury after losing tax revenue. Aranhrod reveals her plan. She will dispatch auditors to collect taxes from nobles using loopholes to pay nothing. Silas scoffs, stating that no noble would ever accept such a proposal. With a steady gaze, Aranhrod asks why they wouldn't, reminding them that it is the duty of the ruling class to provide for the nation. Her words are met with a heavy silence. The nobles' defiance is clear. They have no intention of following their emperor's command. The council chamber remains locked in a silent mutiny, leaving Emperor Aranhrod completely isolated. Just as her authority seems to vanish, a single voice breaks the stalemate. Grand Duke Rourke calmly declares that his territory will be the first to comply. He announces that the Grand Duchy will reduce its taxes, accept the audit, and even pay any fines found. With a placid smile, he states his complete readiness to follow Her Majesty's will. The other nobles are stunned. With the most powerful man in the empire backing the emperor, their united front collapses instantly. They have no choice but to agree. Later, Duke Silas leans in and tells Aranrod she is lucky to have such a loyal subject. He muses that someday, she is sure to recognize the depth of the Grand Duke's loyalty. Across the room, Rourke's pleasant facade drops. His eyes flash a menacing red as he glares at Silas for speaking so familiarly with his emperor. Away from the court, Rourke's true thoughts surface. He can never be a loyal subject. In the garden, a weary Aranrod tries to find a moment of peace. She senses a presence and dismisses them, thinking it's an attendant. But the voice that answers is Rourke's, coolly stating he isn't there to serve her. He closes the distance, his eyes a dangerous red. He criticizes her heavy makeup before grabbing her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. Rourke reminds her that he put her on the throne to be a silent, beautiful doll, not a functioning ruler. Suddenly, he pulls her into an invasive embrace. Aranrod panics, terrified of being seen, but he simply scoffs at her attempts to play queen. He leans in closer, his voice a low threat, asking if she's forgotten what it cost her to attain her position. He questions her sudden shyness, reminding her of the past they share. Rourke's words send Aranrod spiraling back into a horrifying memory. She is no longer in the garden, but in the ruins of the throne room, kneeling before the man she once knew as Enoch. He stands over her, his expression unreadable, and reminds her that she is the last surviving member of the royal family. Recalling a time when she saved his life, he claims he is now repaying that debt and presents her with a choice. She can either end her own life with what little honor she has left, or she can stay by his side and play the part of empress. He frames this cruel ultimatum as an act of kindness, a small mercy offered because of their past engagement. Trapped and broken, Aranrod can only stare in silence, reliving the moment her life was stolen from her. The grand hall feels empty, a testament to her complete isolation. Aranrod panics, pleading with Rourke that it's still daytime, but he simply dismisses her fears. He remarks that since this garden is hardly ever visited, they won't be disturbed. With a wild look in his glowing red eyes, he pushes her down onto the stone ground. She looks up in bewilderment, asking why he's doing this. Instead of answering, Rourke lies beside her, his expression turning strangely calm as he gently strokes her hair. He begins speaking about an upcoming luncheon, mentioning he's instructed the chefs to prepare all the dishes she enjoys. But then his gentle touch becomes a tight, painful grip on her jaw. He orders her to eat everything, leaving nothing behind. Leaning over her, he demands to know if she's going to obey. Trapped beneath his intense gaze, Aranrod can only remain silent, completely at his mercy. He has made it clear that even her meals are under his absolute control. Lying beside her on the cold stone, Rourke continues his torment with a chilling suggestion, whispering that if she wants, they could start right now. Aranrod flinches, frantically insisting that wasn't what she meant at all. With a sigh, he expresses disappointment at her firm denial, his gentle touch on her hair a stark contrast to his intimidating presence. As she rests her head against his chest, a steady thumping sound reaches her ears, his heartbeat. In that strange, quiet moment, she is struck by a simple thought. This terrifying man is just an ordinary human. This clarity is fleeting. Rourke's tone softens, telling her not to worry and to get some rest, promising he'll wake her up on time. He leans in close, his expression unreadable as he gazes down at her, then whispers her title, Your Majesty, a quiet reminder that even in this supposed moment of peace, she still belongs completely to him. A few days later, the Empire's nobles are furious. One slams his fist on a table, complaining that Aranrod's new tax reform will force them all to obey her without question. Their main problem, however, isn't just the Empress, it's Grand Duke Rourke's total support for her plan. A frustrated Marquis insists that the Grand Duke can't let himself be dragged around by her forever. Elsewhere, Duke Silas overhears similar whispers. A nobleman claims to know about the relationship between the two rulers, but his friend quickly shushes him. When Silas asks what he means, the man simply remarks that the Grand Duke is new to his title, implying it's nothing more than youthful devotion. The comment makes Silas think of Aranrod's father, the late emperor. He remembered how the old king absolutely adored his daughter, the first princess born in 100 years. He cherished her so deeply that he personally reviewed potential husbands, wanting only for her to marry for love and live a happy, comfortable life. Duke Silas's mind drifts back to the past. He remembers the late emperor wanted his daughter to have a simple, comfortable life, but Aranhrad's mother urged her to marry for love. And she did. The princess brought home a fiancé she adored, Enoch, the former Grand Duke of Rourke. Silas recalls seeing them together at the palace when he was young, thinking they looked so genuinely happy. He can still picture Aranhrad's radiant smile as she called out Enoch's name. But that dream was shattered. The happiness was all in vain, because just 1 year after their engagement, the Grand Duke was executed for treason. Snapping back to the present, the tense meeting of nobles is coming to a head. One marquis slams his hand down, declaring it's time to put strong pressure on Her Majesty. He then turns to the silent Duke Silas, pointedly asking what he thinks they should do. All eyes in the room fix on him, waiting for an answer. With all eyes on him, Duke Silas listens as a marquis proposes a new plan. He should act as the mediator between the nobles and the empress. Surprised by the sudden responsibility, he nevertheless makes his way to the palace to speak with Aranhrad. He finds his path blocked by an aide, who apologetically informs him that an audience is impossible right now. He insists the matter is important, but the aide explains that the empress is in a private meeting with Grand Duke Rourke, and it's dragging on. The news leaves him speechless. Inside the royal chambers, Aranhrad's hand grips a document on her desk so tightly her knuckles turn white. Across from her, Grand Duke Rourke watches with a terrifying smirk, his eyes glowing a faint red. He leans forward, his voice dripping with false obedience as he declares that he will follow her will. The words sound less like a promise and more like a chilling reminder of who is truly in control. Inside the Emperor's private chambers, Rourke's presence is suffocating. He leans close, asking Aranhrad what she truly desires. Her mind flashes back to a time she desperately tried to forget. He takes her delicate hand, his touch unsettling as he remarks on how her skin has cleared after a few days of rest. He then whispers that she doesn't need to hold back any reactions for his sake, pushing her further into a corner. Panicked, Aranhrad insists this is her office, and they could be discovered. As if summoned by her fear, a firm knock echoes through the room. An aide announces an urgent matter, asking if it's a good time. The Empress flinches, feeling completely exposed. Outside, the head chamberlain is furious with the interruption, having given specific orders for privacy. But the junior aide explains that Duke Silas's request for an audience was simply too urgent to deny, leaving no room for argument. From outside the chamber, Duke Silas's concerned voice calls out, asking if the Empress is unwell. Inside, Aranhrad freezes, but Rourke simply tightens his grip on her. He asks if she plans to grant the Duke an audience, his voice laced with menace. As Aranhrad tries to protest, he pulls her closer, claiming he needs to make her look presentable for her guest. He whispers that she shouldn't be seen looking so flustered. When Silas asks to come in, Rourke coolly answers for her, lying that she just spilled a teacup and there's no need to enter. With the immediate threat gone, he leans in and whispers a chilling suggestion for her not to hold back any sounds. Aranhrad trembles, thinking that no matter how cruel he is, ordering his end is the one thing she can never do. Her silent acceptance, Rourke knows, only encourages his terrible behavior. The door remains firmly shut, leaving her completely trapped. Aranhrad's mind drifts back to her days as a princess, sick in bed. A young Enoch enters her room, waking her. He heard she had a cold and came to see how she was feeling. Embarrassed, she tells him not to look at her, but he simply reassures her that she is always lovely. As he helps her sit, she asks if he came all the way from his estate just for her. He admits he was worried, and her mother gave him special permission to visit. The memory shifts to Enoch's formal meeting with the Empress Dowager. Aranhrad's mother explains that her daughter can be a bit immature, but she is their precious child, worth more than anything. She delivers a solemn warning, telling Enoch she will never forgive anyone who hurts her daughter's heart. Returning to Aranhrad's memory, a young Aranhrad looks at Enoch with innocent curiosity. She confesses that it feels strange to see him being so kind to her. The young Enoch admits he thought Aranhrad might be annoyed by him always chasing after her, but quickly insists that's not true. Lying in bed, Aranhrad looks at him, her heart full. She recalls her mother's words about her being a precious child before making a heartfelt confession. She likes him. With his kindness, she feels like she can accomplish anything. Taking his hand, she asks him to always stay by her side. But the sweet memory violently shatters into a nightmare. The past returns in a flash of red, revealing a chaotic battlefield. A voice explains the devastating truth. The great house of Rourke was abandoned by the emperor and left powerless, like a toothless dog. An official document is thrown before a defeated figure. A cruel voice taunts him, asking if he finally understands why he's there. It's because the princess he once cared for had renounced her claim and sold him off completely. The tormenting memory continues as a document bearing Aranhrad's signature is presented to a defeated Enoch. A cruel voice cuts through the chaos, telling him the princess had made her choice. She apparently decided that marrying the old Marquis Maxwell was a far better option than saving a damned traitor like him. Enoch's eyes widen in absolute horror, blood trickling down his face from an unseen injury. He can't accept this reality, his denial's barely a whisper. The memory shatters like a broken mirror, revealing a cold, detached reflection of Aranhrad. She looks down upon his suffering, calling him foolish for believing in her. The nightmare fades, leaving Grand Duke Rourke alone in the present. He stands in the dark, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles are white. The fury from that decades-old betrayal still burns brightly in his glowing red eyes, a wound that has clearly never healed. Grand Duke Rourke's heavy breathing echoes in the dark room as he clenches his fist, the rage from his nightmares spilling into reality. He stands over Emperor Aranhrad, his crimson eyes fixed on her as she sits up in bed, looking disheveled and afraid. An aide gently suggests that perhaps she should refuse her audience for the day. Aranhrad's mind floods with panic. She thinks if the observant Duke Silas were to see her like this, he would completely misunderstand the situation. He would never guess the true nature of their twisted arrangement. The thought horrifies her. Rourke reaches out and forcefully grabs her dress. The sudden movement startles her, and she glares back, her expression a mix of shock and defiance. But Rourke simply looks down on her, his voice cold and menacing. He demands to know if she finds him laughable, ordering her to speak. His control is absolute, leaving her trapped and powerless in her own chambers. Grand Duke Rourke grabs the Emperor's dress, his voice laced with menace as he demands to know how much of a joke he is to her. Fed up with the torment, Aranhrad fires back with bitter defiance. She challenges him to lock her in an underground prison or sell her off to the most wretched man alive if he intends to continue mocking her. Her outburst has no effect. Rourke coldly claims he is simply her servant and that she has no need for pride. All she must do is ask for what she wants. Enraged by his twisted words, Aranhrad shoves him away, yelling that he's a liar who has never once followed her will. Rourke remains unnervingly calm. He counters that he has only ever given her what she truly desired. Before she can process his chilling statement, he closes the distance between them. In a swift, overpowering motion, he asserts his dominance once more, leaving her breathless and trapped in his suffocating grip. Grand Duke Rourke leans in close, his voice dangerously low as he tells Aranhrad not to fear him. He promises he would never cause her harm, no matter what cruelty she might inflict upon him in return. His words are a chilling reminder of a past vow, seemingly forged in violence. Aranhrad trembles, but finds her voice, accusing him of hypocrisy. She states he doesn't even see her as his master, so his claims of loyalty are nothing but a lie. With a sudden, powerful move, Rourke overpowers her, trapping her beneath him. He coldly reminds Aranhrad that she was the one who chose to keep him by her side from the start. If she had truly wanted to preserve her pride, she never should have made that choice. A wave of despair washes over her as she realizes there are certain feelings she could never dare to show him. Before another word can be spoken, he closes the final gap. In one swift motion, he reasserts his dominance, leaving her breathless in a suffocating embrace that crushes all her defiance. As Duke Silas arrives for his audience, he's stopped in his tracks by the sight of Grand Duke Rourke. A fresh red mark is visible on Rourke's cheek. Silas cautiously asks if the Emperor was responsible. With a casual smile, Rourke admits he offended Her Majesty and says the reaction was only natural. He even claims to be grateful she showed him mercy, letting him off with just a single strike. The explanation doesn't sit right with Silas. He knows Aranhrad is famously composed and wonders what Rourke could have done to push her so far. Rourke gives a cryptic answer, telling Silas it's something he couldn't possibly imagine. Now nervous about his own meeting, Silas hopes he doesn't make the same mistake. Rourke tells him not to worry, a sinister smile playing on his lips. As Silas departs, Rourke's red eyes gleam. He knows he's the only one in the world who can truly get under her skin. Duke Silas stands in silence, deeply unsettled by the Grand Duke's words. Rourke is the only one who can truly anger the Emperor, a fact that just doesn't add up. The Duke's mind wanders back to a dark chapter in the Empire's history. A flashback reveals a grim memory. Just 1 year after his engagement, the former Grand Duke of Rourke was executed for treason. Everything he had hoped for was lost. Back in the present, Rourke cuts through the tension, asking Silas what business he has with the Emperor. Before Silas can properly answer, Rourke suggests he hear the report first, citing Her Majesty's bad mood. He smoothly takes the documents from Silas's grasp. Startled, Silas pulls back, politely stating that he must deliver this news to the Emperor directly. Rourke simply gives a knowing smile. He tells Silas it would be better to wait and hear about his meeting from Her Majesty later, completely dismissing him and blocking his path. Duke Silas stands his ground, telling Rourke he has overstepped his bounds by taking the official documents. Unfazed, Rourke's red eyes seem to glow as he flips the argument. He calmly states that if a matter is of great importance, then the Emperor should naturally be the first to review it. After all, he adds, she is the one who rules the Empire. Silas is left speechless, unable to find a flaw in that logic. Suddenly, an aide arrives to announce that Her Majesty has granted Duke Silas an audience. Hearing this, Rourke chuckles, casually remarking that the Emperor seems to have calmed down. He smoothly takes his leave, leaving a deeply unsettled Silas behind. As Rourke walks away down the dark corridor, a slow, triumphant smile spreads across his face. He has once again proven that he alone controls access to the Emperor, reinforcing his total dominance. Duke Silas finally gets his audience with Emperor Aranhrod, presenting the official statement from the nobles about her tax audit. He explains he's acting as a mediator, but the backlash is intense. Elder Council members are furious, and some are even threatening to boycott the next assembly. He places the documents before her, waiting for her response. Instead of talking politics, Aranhrod looks at him with tired eyes. She quietly asks if he also believes she is making unreasonable demands. The direct question catches Silas completely off guard, and he hesitates. His mind flashes back to a stern warning he received from another lord. The man had called the Emperor a reckless child running wild with the Grand Duke's power behind her. He had planted a seed of doubt, questioning what exactly Aranhrod could have done to secure Rourke's unwavering loyalty. That same toxic suspicion now hangs in the air between the Duke and his Emperor, leaving him speechless. Staring at his Emperor, Duke Silas finds himself completely caught off guard. He can't help but notice the exhaustion on her face and the subtle redness around her eyes, making him wonder if she was crying moments before he entered. Aranhrod senses his prolonged gaze, and her expression hardens. With a cold tone, she reminds him that looking directly at the ruler without permission is a grave crime. Startled by the sharp reminder, Silas immediately apologizes and looks away. Aranhrod dismisses his apology with a wave. She wasn't looking for etiquette lessons. Instead, she pins him down with a direct question, demanding his personal opinion on the new tax audit. The inquiry hangs in the air, putting him in an impossible position. The poisonous words of the other nobles echo in his mind, painting her as a reckless child. Torn between his duty, the rumors, and his growing concern, Silas is left utterly speechless. Duke Silas attempts to mediate, explaining that for many nobles, tax evasion is practically a custom. He notes this is why their opposition is so fierce, but adds that a compromise isn't impossible. Aranhrod remains silent, her expression unreadable. Before Silas can stumble through another sentence, she cuts him off, curtly telling him she understands. With a polite but final "thank you," she dismisses him from her presence. Later that night, a troubled Silas replays the strange meeting in his mind. The Emperor seemed so different. Unsettled, he can't shake the feeling that her odd behavior is connected to Grand Duke Rourke. A chilling memory then invades his thoughts, confirming his suspicions. He remembers Rourke's menacing voice delivering a clear threat. The Grand Duke had warned him away from Aranhrod, declaring with absolute possessiveness that he is the only one who is allowed to anger the Emperor. Leaving the Emperor's office, Duke Silas is deeply troubled. He can't help but wonder about the true nature of Aranhrod's relationship with Grand Duke Rourke. However, he immediately shuts down that line of thinking. He knows that such dangerous curiosity could cost him his life, and tries to convince himself that their affairs are none of his business. Still, the image from their meeting haunts him. He remembers her polite but frigid dismissal, the finality in her voice as she thanked him and turned back to her desk. The memory of her exhausted and hardened expression won't leave him. Later that night, sitting alone in the dark, Silas's hands tighten into fists. He replays the brief interaction, unable to shake the unsettling feeling it gave him. He realizes that the sight of his troubled emperor is something he won't be able to forget for a very long time. Late that night, Emperor Aranhrod finds a glimmer of hope while reading a letter from an old friend, the Count of the Clared Borderlands. He happily accepts her invitation to the capital, agreeing that the tax issue needs more discussion. Aranhrod sighs in relief, confident she can persuade her childhood friend. She even has a plan for another noble, Duke Heston, believing she can win his favor by offering a good family match for his heir. However, her optimism vanishes when she considers her main obstacle, the Marquis of Bern. The man is harsh, unyielding, and openly dislikes her. She admits she has no idea how to win him over. Even with Duke Silas acting as a mediator, the situation feels grim. The nobles have been dodging taxes for ages, and she feels the crushing weight of her limited power, wishing desperately that she had more allies in this impossible fight. Sinking into her chair, Aranhrod feels the weight of her crown. To push her reforms, she desperately needs more political allies, but the imposing shadow of Grand Duke Rourke is a constant, suffocating presence. When a maid checks in, Aranhrod quickly dismisses her concerns and requests a bath. She firmly instructs the staff to leave her completely alone, seeking a rare moment of solitude. As she floats in the warm water, trying to quiet her mind, a familiar voice shatters the peace. It's Rourke. He has entered her private chambers without permission. He coolly addresses her as Your Majesty, telling her not to turn away. As his hand glides into the water, he delivers a chilling reminder. She must never forget what she gave him in exchange for the throne. He makes it clear that even in her most private moments, she belongs to him, and her power is simply a loan he can collect on at any time. Rourke's words send Aranhrod spiraling into a nightmare, a violent, blood-stained memory of a promise made long ago. In the darkness, his voice asks if she's thinking of pretending their deal never existed. She jolts awake with a sharp gasp, finding herself not in the bath, but in her bed. The relief is short-lived as Rourke is standing right there. He calmly observes she's finally awake. Disoriented and caught between dream and reality, Aranhrod whispers the name she's not supposed to remember. Enoch. He leans over her, his presence suffocating. He claims he hasn't been there long, explaining he didn't wake her because she seemed to be sleeping so peacefully. Getting uncomfortably close, he notes how startled she is, asking if she had a bad dream. Flustered and trapped, Aranhrod can only stammer a denial, cornered by the man who is both her jailer and the ghost of her past love. A memory flashes through Aranhrod's mind, a time she told Enoch she was worried he was angry with her. In the present, Rourke holds her close, his tone dripping with sarcasm as he claims he would never dare be angry with Her Majesty. He then informs her that he paid a visit to the Marquis of Bern, one of her loudest political opponents. Rourke explains that he gave the Marquis a firm warning about the tax issue, framing it as a favor since she always found the man so unpleasant. Flustered, Aranhrod can only agree that the Marquis is overbearing. Before she can say more, Rourke leans in, silencing her with a kiss. Completely disoriented, she whispers the forbidden name, Enoch. He ignores her question, commenting on her warmth before lifting her from the water. She weakly protests about the servants, but he calmly states that he already dismissed them. Carrying her towards the roaring fireplace, he tells her to rest. Rourke gently sets the disoriented Empress on a divan by the roaring fire. For a moment, a strange sense of nostalgia washes over Aranhrod. Sitting there in the quiet warmth feels just like the old days, before her world was turned upside down. Celebrating the first anniversary of Aranhrod's coronation, she sits on her throne, a picture of imperial grace, but with deep exhaustion in her eyes. A noble couple approaches to offer their congratulations, but she is clearly in no mood for pleasantries. She thanks them for attending and dismisses them to enjoy the party, her curtness causing them to retreat quickly. Rourke suddenly appears beside her, observing that the guests won't truly relax until she does. He reminds her that tradition dictates she must have the first dance to officially begin the festivities. Annoyed by the formal obligation, Aranhrod looks away, muttering that she finds the whole thing pointless. Rourke leans over the throne, questioning why Aranhrod finds the tradition pointless. He cruelly reminds her of the past, when she used to beg her father to let her attend banquets. Grasping her chin, he recalls how she would change dresses multiple times, always seeming to enjoy herself so much. A memory flashes through Aranhrad's mind, her younger, carefree self, dancing joyfully at a party. But the happy image twists into a dark, painful recollection. She knows that back then, everything was different. Now, she feels as though her whole court sees her as a puppet. Suddenly, a gentle voice cuts through her grim thoughts. The charming Duke Silas approaches, offering his apologies for interrupting. He smiles, politely noting that the Grand Duke is also present. As Aranhrad acknowledges him, Rourke glares at the unwelcome guest. He simply explains that he couldn't miss the first anniversary of her coronation. Duke Silas bows respectfully, offering his personal congratulations to the Empress. Looking weary, Aranhrad quietly offers her thanks. Just as Silas prepares to take his leave, she suddenly tells him to wait. She recalls his recent actions. During the difficult tax negotiations, Silas had stepped up to act as a mediator, a role he wasn't required to take. Although Rourke was the one who ultimately shut down the opposition, Silas's unexpected support stuck with her. Seeing an opportunity, Aranhrad makes a bold move. She explains to the Duke that the banquet cannot officially begin until she has her first dance. Then, with Grand Duke Rourke standing right beside her, she asks Silas to be her partner. The shocking request hangs in the air. Rourke is visibly stunned, his face twisting into a dark, menacing glare. He watches silently as Aranhrad openly defies him, choosing another man for the dance he believed was his by right. The entire court watches, stunned into silence by Aranhrad's bold move. She extends her hand to Duke Silas, directly asking for his response. For a moment, the young Duke hesitates, caught between the Empress's request and the Grand Duke's furious glare. With a charming smile, Silas makes his choice. He takes Aranhrad's hand gently, accepting her offer. As they turn to leave for the dance floor, she tells him not to worry, a quiet assurance between new allies. Left standing alone by the empty throne, Rourke's composure finally cracks. His eyes flash with a dangerous red light as he watches them walk away. He mutters to himself that he will step onto the floor just as she wished. It's not a statement of defeat, but a chilling promise. Aranhrad may have chosen her own partner, but Rourke makes it clear he has no intention of letting her lead the dance for long. As Aranhrad and Duke Silas take their positions on the dance floor, the entire court watches. The moment the music swells, the Emperor falters, her steps uncertain. Silas quickly steadies her, his grip firm but gentle. He asks if she is all right, assuring her that he'll hold her steady so she can move at her own pace. Visibly flustered, Aranhrad apologizes. She confesses it has been a very long time since she last danced like this. Silas smiles, noting she still seems a bit tense. Aranhrad admits it's embarrassing, but he's right. She adds that the popular dances seem to have changed and asks him to overlook any mistakes. He reassures her that the new styles aren't so different. With charming confidence, he offers to show her a few moves. Before she can ask how, he spins her into a swift, elegant turn. He explains that trying them is the most effective way to learn. Caught by surprise, Aranhrad gasps that he's moving too fast. As Duke Silas dips her gracefully, he asks with a charming smile if this isn't more fun. For a brief moment, swept up in the motion, Aranhrad thinks it might be. The feeling of freedom is a welcome, if fleeting, escape. But her small moment of joy shatters instantly. Across the ballroom, she spots Grand Duke Rourke watching her, his presence casting a dark shadow over the celebration. All the warmth drains from her face as she freezes mid-dance, her eyes wide with a familiar terror. Silas calls out to her, confused by her stillness. But Aranhrad can't hear him. Rourke's voice echoes in her mind, a cruel whisper from the past asking if she has forgotten her sin. A painful memory surfaces, a vision of her younger, tear-stricken self, trapped in a moment of despair. The dance is over, and her gilded cage feels smaller than ever. The memory sends Aranhrad spiraling back several years, to a grand ball in the Leinster Empire. A younger, beaming princess Aranhrad rushes toward her father, the Emperor. He gently warns her to be careful, but she's just too happy to slow down. She thanks her parents for hosting the event, and her father tenderly promises that this will be the happiest day of her life. Just then, a young man is announced. Aranhrad's face lights up as she sees him and calls out his name, Enoch. Looking every bit the noble lord, Enoch bows respectfully before the royal couple. The emperor thanks him for attending and asks him to please look after his daughter. With the emperor's blessing, Enoch turns to the princess. The younger Aranhrod looks at her fiancé with pure adoration, completely unaware of the dark future waiting for them. It was a perfect moment, a painful reminder of everything she had lost. In the memory, a younger princess Aranhrod and her fiancé, Enoch, share the first dance of the banquet. Completely lost in the moment, she leans in close to tell him a secret about her sparkling dress. It was filled with countless tiny jewels, sewn in just so she could look beautiful for him. Enoch asked if she should be sharing such things, but Aranhrod laughed, saying of course she could. As they continued to dance, her voice full of hope for their future, the grand doors burst open. The royal guards stormed in, their armor clattering loudly on the marble floor. Their captain drew his sword, pointing it directly at Enoch. Before the shocked court, he declared that Enoch was under arrest for the crime of treason. The music stopped, replaced by the horrified gasps of the nobles as the perfect night turned into an absolute nightmare. The happy memory was over, ushering in the beginning of her long suffering. The emperor was outraged, declaring the charge of treason to be utter nonsense and a frame-up. As guards grabbed Enoch, a panicked Aranhrod screamed his name, desperately trying to get to him. She pleaded with her father to intervene, to stop this madness. But the emperor remained silent, his expression cold and distant. Instead of helping, he gave a quiet order for the princess to be escorted back to her chambers. Aranhrod stared in disbelief.
Her own father was abandoning them.
As the guards dragged him toward the exit, Enoch looked back at her. He tried to offer a reassuring smile, telling her not to worry and promising that he would be fine. But his words were drowned out by Aranhrod's cries. She collapsed onto the marble floor, her perfect world completely shattered. His promise to her, meant to be a comfort, would tragically become the very first lie Enoch ever told. Back in her chambers, Aranhrod is frantic. A teacup falls from her hand and shatters as she denies the terrible news. She declares that it's impossible. Enoch could never be a traitor. But a lady-in-waiting delivers the grim reality. Her father, the emperor, has already passed judgment. The entire House of Rourke has been condemned for treason, and there is no escape. The news gets even worse. The Grand Duke and Duchess were already dealt with the day before. Trembling, Aranhrod asks about Enoch. The final, crushing blow lands. His execution is scheduled for 1 week from now. The world seems to fade to black as the princess's strength gives out, and she collapses to the floor. Later, she wakes in bed, weak and frail. A familiar figure stands over her. It's Enoch. He tells her he heard she hadn't been eating or drinking, asking why she would risk her health. Through her tears, she explains it's the only way she can think of to make her father listen to her pleas. Enoch tells the weak princess that despite everything, he's relieved. Aranhrod breaks down, sobbing with joy as she hugs him. She explains that her father finally granted her request. He spared Enoch's life. But her happiness is cut short when she reaches for his face and sees the serious injuries he sustained. His eyes are hollow and red. He explains the emperor's cruel punishment. He's been stripped of his title and is now a commoner, but he was granted mercy because of her. Overcome with guilt, Aranhrod falls to her knees. She apologizes for failing to protect him and his family. She clutches onto him, making a desperate vow that from now on, she will always be by his side, protecting him no matter what happens. As she makes this solemn promise, the rain pours outside. A sudden flash shows a carriage being attacked and overturned on a dark, wet road, hinting that fate has other plans. The promise to protect Enoch is immediately broken by a cruel twist of fate. During a violent storm, a carriage is utterly destroyed in a terrible landslide. Soon after, whispers fill a somber hall. The news is grim. The empress perished in the accident. Making matters worse, the emperor sustained a severe head injury, leaving him incapacitated. All eyes turn to the young Princess Aranhrod, who stands alone in her grief. One noble remarks how overwhelming the shock must be for someone so young. A man then approaches, identifying himself as her older brother. He embraces her, promising that he and Dylan will take care of her in their father's place. Dazed, Aranhrod can only repeat his words, "Older brothers." As if in a trance, the memory fades, leaving the adult Aranhrod standing alone, forever haunted by the day her entire world fell apart. After her dance, a nobleman praises Emperor Aranhrod, noting how perfectly in sync she was with her partner, Duke Silas. He then adds that it would have been nicer if her partner had been the royal consort. The careless remark immediately sours the mood, and Grand Duke Rourke's expression darkens. Aranhrod stumbles, her breathing becoming unsteady. Duke Silas rushes to her side, asking if she's all right. But before he can help, Rourke intervenes. He firmly places a hand on her, declaring that the Emperor has simply grown tired. Ignoring Silas's concerned gaze, Rourke states that he will escort her back to her seat. Caught between the two men, a pale Aranhrod forces a weak smile. She insists to Silas that she is perfectly fine. Rourke leads her away, leaving Silas to watch them with a troubled and suspicious look. As Aranhrod slumps into her chair, the weight of the evening and her gilded cage becomes all too clear. A nobleman puts Emperor Aranhrod on the spot, questioning why she remains without a consort after 20 years on the throne. Looking pained, Aranhrod firmly states she has no intention of marrying. But the noble presses on, arguing that securing a reliable heir is her most critical duty to the empire. He insists the issue of succession cannot simply be ignored, and others in the court murmur in agreement, cornering their ruler. Standing silently behind her throne, Grand Duke Rourke finally intervenes. He asks the nobleman if he truly fails to grasp the situation. With a menacing smile, Rourke reminds the entire court that the Emperor is, after all, a woman. Then he delivers the final, devastating blow. He declares that even without an official royal consort, Her Majesty is fully capable of producing an heir. The thinly veiled threat echoes through the hall, leaving Aranhrod absolutely shattered. In one cruel statement, Rourke publicly humiliates her, asserting his complete control. The nobleman is horrified by Rourke's suggestion. He demands to know if they are truly considering placing a child of unconfirmed lineage on the throne, an act that would disregard centuries of imperial legitimacy. He accuses the Grand Duke of having his own hidden motives. But Rourke is unmoved. He calmly states that compared to a child born from the Empress herself, no heir could be more legitimate. The father's status, he insists, is unimportant. Before the nobleman can even process this, Rourke's eyes flash with a dangerous red glint. He cuts straight to the heart of the matter, accusing the man of being desperate to make his son the prince consort. He then crudely asks if he should be treating his own son like a political commodity. As the nobleman sputters in outrage, Aranhrod finally breaks. She yells for them both to stop. Addressing the silent court, the exhausted emperor explains that her reign is new and the affairs of state are already overwhelming. She declares that all discussions of succession will wait until her rule is stable, putting an end to the confrontation. After the intense confrontation in the throne room, the nobleman who challenged Aranhrod quickly offers Grand Duke Rourke a deep apology. He admits he was too rash, and his wife insists he had no ulterior motives. With a smooth and dismissive grace, Rourke accepts, telling the man not to worry. He frames the entire incident as a simple case of excessive loyalty, effectively ending the matter while reasserting his own authority. Watching this exchange from a distance, a marquis clenches his teeth in frustration. He believes he could have persuaded the Empress if Rourke hadn't stepped in. He's irritated by the Grand Duke's arrogance, noting that Rourke acts as if he's already her fiancé. The Marquis starts to suspect that Rourke is the true reason Aranhrod remains unmarried. He dismisses the Grand Duke as the Empress's loyal dog, but one look at Rourke's intense, red-eyed stare reveals a loyalty far more dangerous and possessive than simple devotion. Later, at a formal gathering, Aranhrod observes Rourke from her throne, lost in thought. She can't understand how he can be so cruel one moment, yet maintain the perfect image of a nobleman in public. To her, he's always on edge, always pushing her buttons, and she struggles to reconcile his two faces. Her thoughts are cut short when Rourke suddenly reaches over and takes the wine glass directly from her hand. Before she can react, he takes a sip. He notes she was drinking more than usual, so he was curious about the taste, but concludes it's nothing special. Aranhrod is left speechless by his audacity. Just then, two noble women approach to offer their greetings. When they ask Rourke for a dance, he politely declines, claiming he's had too much to drink. He explains he can't show any weakness before the Empress, all while keeping his possessive gaze fixed on her. Even in a crowded hall, he makes it clear who he's there for. Aranhrod's mind drifts back to a time before everything fell apart, when he was still Enoch. In the memory, he approaches her at a party, noticing she seems unwell. He tells her he doesn't like seeing her with the other noble ladies she was just talking to. With a heavy heart, Aranhrod explains the hurtful rumors they spread. The girls whisper that their engagement will surely be broken, believing the powerful Grand Duchy would never accept a frail princess. Touched by her vulnerability, Enoch promises to stop speaking to those who hurt her. Reflecting on this, Aranrod recalls how he was the kindest person she knew. Yet, she always understood that his kindness wasn't special just for her. He treated everyone with the same gentle respect. Because of this, she was desperate to know what he truly felt for her, to see the real man behind the perfect, polite exterior. Lost in thought, Aranrod laments a past she couldn't appreciate at the time. The grand party has become unbearable, with every polite smile feeling like a lie. Needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere, she abruptly rises from her throne. Ignoring the calls behind her, she descends the grand staircase and walks out into the cold palace gardens. Even in the crisp night air, the feeling of being trapped follows her. Her brief moment of peace is shattered by a rustle in the nearby bushes. A patrolling attendant immediately calls out, demanding the person hiding reveal themselves. A flustered voice quickly insists he isn't an intruder as a figure emerges from the shadows. The attendant seems to recognize him, and Aranrod's eyes widen slightly. Standing before her is the observant, blonde-haired nobleman from the party, Duke Silas, looking just as surprised to see her out here alone. Aranrod confronts Duke Silas, asking why he's hiding in the gardens. Flustered, Silas insists he wasn't, explaining he simply stepped out for air and became curious about a flower he'd never seen before. A small, rare smile touches Aranrod's lips as she remarks that even the Duke seems to have a delicate side. His mood shifts, and he admits to feeling ashamed. He clarifies that he should be embarrassed for putting her in an awkward position earlier at the party. Aranrod immediately tells him not to be absurd. In fact, she confesses that she feared she had overstepped boundaries. With a look of genuine warmth, she explains that thanks to him, she was able to enjoy herself for the first time in ages, and for that, she is truly grateful. Silas deflects her gratitude, his thoughts turning to the recent tax situation. He tells her he knows how hard she fought for justice, standing up to the other nobles even when it resulted in her being fined. Aranrod, however, disagrees. She says it's not something worth thanking her for, reminding him that in the end, it was both him and Grand Duke Rourke who truly forced the Marquis to back down. Looking at him with sincere appreciation, she confesses that without his initial support, she never would have found the courage to oppose them at all. Her gaze becomes distant as she admits to sometimes wondering about his true thoughts. It seems to her that he deliberately chooses the more difficult path. Silas asks who would ever do such a thing. With a heavy sigh, Aranrod explains that for her, there are no easy options. Even refusing to make a choice is a decision in itself. Duke Silas counters that choosing a difficult path isn't necessarily a good one. Aranrod, however, is resolute. She explains that she can't just ignore the needs of her people to appease the nobles. If she doesn't intervene, she knows the greedy aristocrats will bleed the common folk dry without any restraint. Just because she may be an incompetent empress, she insists, doesn't mean she has forgotten her duty. Realizing she spoke too openly, she tells Silas to forget it. But he looks at her with genuine admiration. He tells her that if she hadn't taken the throne, he believes she would have made a fine revolutionary. Aranrod lets out a small laugh, finding the idea of being both an empress and a revolutionary ridiculous. Besides, she adds, a revolution led by someone like her would have been doomed. With a sad expression, Silas agrees. Then, in one swift motion, he grabs her arm, pulling her off balance and catching her in a dramatic dip, their faces suddenly close. Still holding her in a dip, Duke Silas clarifies his statement. He doesn't think she's incompetent at all. In his eyes, even if she had failed as a revolutionary, her efforts would have inspired countless others to find their own courage and carry on the fight. His words strike a nerve, and Aranrod wistfully agrees. She thinks she would have been better off in that role, because at least then her failure could have become the foundation for someone else's success. Puzzled by her grim outlook, Silas reminds her that she has the great Grand Duke Rourke at her side. He argues that with Rourke's unwavering loyalty, there's nothing she can't accomplish. Aranrod's expression turns cold. She states firmly that his authority is not her own. Sensing he's crossed a line, Silas cautiously asks if the Grand Duke unsettles her. The question shatters the fragile peace between them. Realizing his mistake, Silas quickly retracts it. Aranrod simply thanks him for the conversation and walks away, leaving him alone in the gardens under the night sky. Aranrod tells her attendants to head back without her, deciding she needs more time alone. Strolling through the quiet gardens, she tries to clear her head, but the tranquility is broken by a commotion in the bushes. To her and her aide shock, they stumble upon a couple in a passionate embrace, completely lost in their own world. Aranhrod looks on, disgusted by their shameless behavior in the royal garden. Suddenly, a hand violently grabs her face, forcing her to look up. A familiar, cold voice cuts through the night, asking if she has any shame for intruding in their private garden. It's Rourke. He stands over her, his presence suffocating. Before she can react, he leans in close, his voice a low whisper against her ear. He tells her he's been looking all over for her. In this garden, just like in the palace, there is nowhere she can hide from him. As Aranhrod walks through the quiet palace gardens, a rustling in the bushes startles her. Before she can investigate, a gloved hand suddenly covers her mouth. From the shadows emerges Grand Duke Rourke. He pulls her back into a tight embrace, his red eyes glowing in the dark. He asks if she was perhaps hoping it was another man waiting for her. Aranhrod calls his insinuation ridiculous, but he ignores her protest. Grabbing her chin, Rourke forces her to meet his gaze. He cruelly suggests she came out here looking for a secret encounter, just like the shameless couple she stumbled upon earlier. Panicked, the Empress insists she only wanted to take a walk to clear her head. Rourke repeats her excuse, his voice laced with disbelief. He makes it painfully clear that he doesn't believe a word she says, trapping her once again in his web of suspicion. A memory flashes through Rourke's mind, Aranhrod in the garden with the blonde-haired Duke Silas. He tightens his grip, accusing her of lying to the very end. He insists she can be honest with him, but his words are a threat, not an invitation. Confused by a sudden change in tone, Aranhrod questions him. Rourke simply states that he wishes to give His Majesty exactly what she truly desires. He leans in close, his voice a low whisper as he makes a chilling proposition that makes her recoil in fear. She tries to protest, but it's too late. Suddenly, a vivid memory overwhelms him, a vision of a younger, innocent Aranhrod confessing her love for him. The emotional weight of the past slams into the present. The Empress goes limp in his arms, her body giving out from the stress. Rourke looks down in alarm, but then a sharp, inexplicable pain sears through his own chest. He stumbles back, clutching himself and gasping for air, stunned by the visceral connection to her suffering. After her collapse in the garden, Rourke carries the weakened Empress back toward the palace, telling her to lean on him for support. The scene shifts to Aranhrod's chambers, where she is now settled in her room with him watching over her. She weakly thanks him for his help and attempts to dismiss him, stating she'll call for a lady-in-waiting. Rourke immediately shuts her down, declaring there's no need to call anyone. He insists he can attend to her personally. As he speaks, he grabs her wrist, his grip tightening. He leans in close with a chilling smile and asks if she has come to find even his touch repulsive. Aranhrod begins to deny his accusation, but he quickly cuts her off. He coldly points out that he saw her become physically ill right in front of him just moments before. With her trapped in his grasp, Rourke demands to know what other reason there could be for her reaction, cornering her with his twisted logic. Rourke looms over Empress Aranhrod, his grip tightening on her shoulder. He coldly asks if her collapse was because he interrupted a secret meeting with Duke Silas. Stunned, Aranhrod can only stammer, but Rourke cuts her off, revealing that he saw her leave the banquet to meet with the Duke. He mocks her attempts at independence, saying he thought she only knew how to tremble in fear, but it seems her heart can race for another man just fine. Placing a hand over her heart in a chilling gesture of ownership, he demands she say that she wants him. When she recoils in confusion, he sneers, asking if it's the Duke she truly desires. In a swift motion, he overpowers her, pushing her back onto the bed. She tries to protest, insisting she doesn't understand. Rourke leans in close, telling her she never clearly states her desires. He demands to know once and for all what it is she truly wants. As she hesitates, a flicker of a past, intimate memory flashes through his mind. Aranhrod stammers, trying to deny his twisted logic, but Rourke silences her with a cold look. He says that Her Majesty must have something she truly wants from him, revealing a strip of black lace he was holding. Before Aranhrod can react, he swiftly ties the lace over her eyes, plunging her into darkness. Completely disoriented, she asks what he's doing. Rourke simply leans in closer, tilting her chin up so she has no choice but to face him. Powerless, she can only whisper his title. He informs her that he's not in a pleasant mood, but his temper would improve if she would show him she needs him. He loosens his collar, asking if that's really so difficult. He makes his demand clear. All she needs to do is stop her foolish resistance and finally give in. Blinded by the black lace, Aranhrod is left completely disoriented and at his mercy. Rourke looms over her, his presence suffocating as he loosens his collar. Rourke sits on her bed, watching over her. Even in slumber, she can never truly escape her ever-present captor. At a lavish social event, Emperor Aranhrod exchanges pleasantries with the charming Duke Silas. But their conversation is soon interrupted by the imposing presence of Grand Duke Rourke. As Silas and Rourke shake hands, the friendly greeting turns into a silent contest of strength. Rourke's grip tightens with crushing force, a clear and painful message. Silas recoils slightly, wondering if the Grand Duke is deliberately trying to start a fight. Before the tense moment can escalate, an announcer calls for guests to take their seats for the play. Seizing the opportunity, Rourke smoothly separates Aranhrod from Silas, remarking that it's a shame their meeting was so brief. Left behind, Silas clenches his fist, realizing he narrowly avoided a foolish confrontation. He understands that openly clashing with Rourke would gain him nothing. Later, as Aranhrod sits alone in the royal box, consumed by her isolation, Rourke's voice emerges from the shadows. He offers to be the one person who can truly understand her loneliness, asking only for her permission to do so. While nobles in the audience critique the play's casting, a far more intense drama unfolds in the royal box. Rourke turns to Aranhrod, demanding to know why she was laughing with Duke Silas earlier. He then commands her to smile for him again, giving her a chilling warning that tears are the only alternative if she fails. Aranhrod forces a pained expression, which only infuriates him. He dismisses her attempt, stating he has no interest in a fake smile. With a dark look in his eyes, he leans in and tells her that he doesn't care how she feels. For him, her crying is enough. He tightens his hold, telling her to stay quiet or risk making a scene. Her desperate plea for him to stop is met with a cruel, satisfied smile. That was precisely the response he wanted. Utterly defeated, Aranhrod sits in silence, trapped under his suffocating control. In the dim light of the royal box, Rourke observes Aranhrod's silent tears. He once thought seeing her cry would bring him satisfaction. But the feeling is more complex. It's a dark reassurance that she belongs only to him. He is tired of her smiles now, haunted by a single, painful memory. He recalls the moment she begged him to go far away, asking for forgiveness as she sent him toward his fate. That memory fuels his every action. Staring down at her, he declares that she is his everything. His grip on her is a constant, suffocating reminder of his control. As the music from the stage swells, he leans in, his voice a low whisper. He praises her for her tears, telling her she did well. Then, with chilling concern, he asks if she is all right. Aranhrod remains frozen, unable to answer, a beautiful, broken ruler trapped in a gilded cage. A flashback reveals the depths of Rourke's past suffering. After his family's fall from grace, a young Enoch sits alone, vowing that the Emperor will never be forgiven. In his new life as a servant, he is an easy target for cruel nobles. They corner him, mocking that he only survived because of his pretty face and reminding him he's nothing more than a servant now. One aggressor slams him against a wall and throws a punch. Amid the assault, Enoch makes a single, strange request. They can hit him anywhere, but they must not touch his face. The bully asks why he's protecting his only asset. Enoch calmly explains that if Princess Aranhrod saw his face bruised, she would get mad. Amused, the bully agrees to the terms. He then unleashes a brutal attack, but Enoch doesn't fight back. He silently endures every blow, protecting his face for the princess he loves. A memory flashes back to a younger Aranhrod and Enoch. She finds him dressed as a servant and pleads with him to stop. While pouring her tea, he coldly asks what else he is supposed to do. Watching a play. An actress laments her loneliness, and a male lead offers to be the one who understands her. Rourke leans in close, whispering to Aranhrod that the actress is nothing like her. But the Emperor doesn't react to the possessive comment. Instead, she calmly asks him a pointed question. Why did he smile earlier? She calls him out on his subtle act of cruelty toward Duke Silas. Unfazed by her accusation, Rourke gives Aranhrod a chilling command. She is to smile for him now. He warns that if she doesn't, she might end up crying instead. A tear escapes as she questions him, but he simply forces a smile onto her lips himself. Defeated, she asks if he is satisfied, reminding him that she's had enough of his cruel smiles. He feigns ignorance before coldly stating it doesn't matter to him. For Rourke, her tears are just as good. As the play's drama unfolds below, Rourke creates his own. He pulls the Emperor into a forceful and inescapable embrace, leaving her gasping for air. He gets dangerously close, whispering a quiet warning. If she makes a sound, her voice will be the loudest in the theater. With this final act of dominance, he completely silences her, making it clear that even in public, she belongs to him. In the suffocating privacy of their theater box, Rourke's cruelty continues. He mocks Aranhrad's distress, coldly remarking that if she shows any pleasure, it can't be considered a punishment. He then delivers a single, humiliating command. She is to kneel. The order shatters what little composure Aranhrad has left. As she hesitates, Rourke twists the knife, telling her he's sure she'll do well since she's done it before. With her authority as Emperor rendered meaningless, Aranhrad sinks to the floor. Rourke stands over her, forcing her into a position of absolute submission and making his intentions terrifyingly clear. He leans down and whispers a final, chilling set of instructions, leaving no doubt about his complete control over the situation. In this moment of degradation, he reaffirms his ownership, proving that her body and will are his to command. Rourke stands over the kneeling Emperor, a look of cold satisfaction crossing his face. He offers quiet approval, telling her to continue just like that. For Aranhrad, this is the final, soul-crushing humiliation. Tears stream down her cheeks as she is forced to follow his silent, demeaning command. While her spirit screams in protest, her body has no choice but to obey the man who holds all the power. She finally pulls away, choking and gasping for air, the ordeal leaving her completely undone. Rourke observes her breakdown with a chilling stillness, his victory now absolute. He addresses the disheveled ruler with a mocking "Your Majesty," twisting her title into an insult. In his mind, this twisted display confirms his total ownership. She is his everything. As she trembles on the floor, he offers his final, cutting praise, telling her she performed perfectly. In this gilded cage, she is no longer an emperor, but his broken prize. The demeaning ordeal leaves Aranhrad trembling and completely spent. As she struggles to pull herself together, Rourke grabs her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. With cruel, false concern, he asks if she's okay. Aranhrad can only stare back, her expression hollow and her face stained with tears. Her mind desperately tries to rationalize the horror, telling herself this was enough for one day, that it wasn't so bad. The place was just inconvenient, but it was bearable. On the brightly lit stage below, a performer sings her heart out, tears of joyous passion streaming down her face. But in the suffocating shadows of the box, Aranhrad's tears are silent and bitter. She is trapped in her own private tragedy, forced to endure the cruelty of the man who controls her every move. The stark contrast only highlights how utterly broken and alone she truly is in her gilded cage. As Rourke observes the aftermath, he admits to himself that seeing Aranhrad cry brings him a dark feeling of satisfaction. Her tears serve as a twisted confirmation that she truly belongs to him. He remembers a time when she used to smile, but that memory has grown tiresome. Now, he doesn't care if she's happy at all. His fist clenches tightly as a more painful vision surfaces, a younger Aranhrad desperately telling him he must go far away. She begged him to forgive her, saying she had no choice but to send him off. But her pleas are meaningless to him now. Looking back on that moment, he comes to a cold, hard conclusion. The Empress can never be forgiven for what she did. The memory shifts to a younger Enoch, alone in a bleak room, processing her decision. A chilling, determined expression settles on his face, sealing the path of his revenge. A flashback reveals the source of his bitterness. Back when he was just Enoch, he was a target for other young nobles. They relentlessly mocked him, claiming he survived on nothing but his looks. One particularly nasty rival cornered him, sneering that a pretty face wasn't enough to get by. The harassment quickly turned physical. The bully shoved Enoch hard against a wall, telling him he was nothing more than a servant now. He grabbed Enoch's chin, gloating that at least he wasn't a commoner, which made him superior. Through it all, Enoch remained passive until he made one strange request. He told them to hit him anywhere they wanted, but to leave his face untouched. The bully laughed, asking if he was protecting his investment. With his eyes glowing red, Enoch confirmed it. He warned them that if Princess Aranhrad were to see him hurt, she would get very angry. His connection to her was his only shield. The bully, looking over his shoulder, claims he saw nothing, but Enoch coldly confirms it was all him. Accepting his fate, Enoch simply says, "Fine." The group descends on him, delivering a punishing series of blows. He refuses to fight back, passively absorbing the hits with just one rule: his face is off limits. As he's on the ground, his hand tightens around a small, precious token. Later, Enoch is seen pouring tea for a young Aranhrod. She gently tells him he shouldn't be doing such things. He calmly asks what else a servant is supposed to do. This makes Aranhrod slam her hands on the table, frustrated. She declares that he isn't a servant. He is her fiancé. But Enoch reminds her that their engagement was broken due to his parents' crimes. Aranhrod desperately promises that her father, the Emperor, can fix everything. Enoch cuts her off, explaining that some things are beyond even the Emperor's power to change. Aranhrod desperately tries to reassure him, promising that she will ask her father to fix everything. But Enoch cuts through her hope with a bitter reality. He explains that the Emperor cannot reinstate the son of a traitor. He warns her that if she pushes the issue too far, her father is more likely to turn him into a slave, and coldly asks if that's what she really wants. Visibly shaken, Aranhrod clarifies that she just wanted him to be more comfortable. Enoch dismisses her concern, telling her not to misunderstand their new dynamic. He is no longer her fiancé or a noble. He is simply a commoner. He explains that the more kindness she shows him, especially in front of those who already despise him, the more she fuels their dangerous jealousy and envy. As Aranhrod insists she only worries for him, Enoch delivers a final, crushing request. If she truly cares about his well-being, she must treat him like any other servant. With that, he turns and leaves the room. Utterly heartbroken, Aranhrod whispers an apology through her tears, left completely alone. In the grim reality of the servants' quarters, Enoch finds no peace. A bully, seeking trouble, knocks a bowl from his hands before spotting his most treasured possession, a locket with a portrait of him and Aranhrod. The bully snatches it, cruelly mocking him for holding onto the past. He quietly demands it back, but is met with a punishing blow that sends him sprawling to the floor. His eyes flash red with suppressed rage, but he forces himself to stay down, knowing he must endure this to survive. Other servants join in, sneering that even the princess has abandoned the filthy traitor and might sell him off. As their taunts echo around him, he is consumed by a dark regret. He wonders if he had just played along with her back then, maybe he wouldn't be so completely alone right now. He realizes that in that one moment he pushed her away, he lost everything. As Enoch lies defeated on the cold floor, a harsh voice from his past echoes in his mind. It's a cruel lesson on survival. He must kill his emotions, pick up the sword, and become strong enough to rule the grand dukedom. This, the voice reminds him, was the only reason he was ever born. But in his current state, Enoch can only think that it's all useless now. The bully continues his torment, sneering that Enoch will end up just like his parents. The threat strikes a deep nerve, and a dangerous rage flashes in Enoch's red eyes. Just as his self-control is about to shatter, another man's voice cuts through the tension, demanding to know what is happening. The Chamberlain stands in the doorway, his authoritative presence silencing the room. He looks directly at Enoch, ignoring everyone else completely. He has a message that hangs in the air, stunning the bullies into silence. Her Highness, the princess, is looking for him. Upon being summoned, Princess Aranhrod finds Enoch, his face marked by a recent conflict. She is horrified and immediately demands to know who harmed him, promising to deliver justice. Enoch, however, cuts her off with a bitter question, asking if she would truly get rid of them for his sake. He dismisses the idea, telling her that they both know such gestures are completely pointless now. Tears fill Aranhrod's eyes as she makes a heart-wrenching confession. She admits she's been trying to figure out how to be near him without causing him more trouble, concluding that leaving him alone was the only solution. But in the next breath, she grabs his sleeve, pleading that she can't do it, unable to live without him, and begging to be allowed to protect him and ensure his happiness. Enoch turns away, scoffing at the mention of happiness. He then lands a crushing emotional blow, asking how he could ever feel such a thing, especially from the daughter of the man who took his parents' lives. Aranhrod freezes, utterly devastated by the revelation. As Aranhrod reels from the terrible truth, Enoch coldly tells her not to feel guilty. He lays out the harsh reality. If his parents' rebellion had succeeded, her own family would be paying the ultimate price. His red eyes glint as he adds that if their situations were reversed, he wouldn't have bothered to save her. Despite his cruel words, Enoch is conflicted. He has endured so much, but only the princess provokes these strange, sharp feelings in him. Sensing his pain, Aranhrod gently takes his hand. She tells him he can be even harsher if it will make him feel better, insisting he shouldn't feel guilty on her account. Internally, Enoch scoffs at the very idea of guilt. In a sudden move, he pulls her into a tight embrace. Mistaking the source of his anguish, Aranrod clings to him, vowing to make whoever harmed him pay for their actions. She has no idea she's comforting the son of her father's greatest enemy. As he holds the distraught princess, Enoch reflects on his bleak reality. He realizes the dream of living a quiet life as a servant is impossible for the son of a traitor. Clinging to him, Aranrod completely misunderstands his anguish. She begs him not to forgive those who harmed him, pleading for him to act as her agent of revenge. In her desperation, she declares he is the only one who can help her. Internally, Enoch dismisses the idea. He knows the princess is too soft-hearted, and her efforts would barely reduce the constant torment he endures. He once thought that small bit of relief would be enough to get by. But that was before things took a much darker turn. His thoughts drift to a stormy night, remembering the moment Aranrod summoned him. She announced she had something important to discuss, and at her words, a dangerous glint appeared in his eye, marking a pivotal shift in their tragic story. Aranrod reveals that she had initially planned to punish the men herself. Holding a heavy whip, she confesses her original intent was to make them suffer tenfold what Enoch had endured. But after seeing flashbacks of his past torment, she understood she had no idea of the true extent of his pain. When she questioned the culprits, they only begged for mercy. With tears in her eyes, she turns to Enoch and offers him the whip. She tells him he can make them pay himself. If he is unable to, she suggests having her guards carry out the sentence instead. At her words, Enoch's eyes flash a dangerous red. A dark, internal voice reminds him that to survive, he must kill all emotion. Taking his hand, Aranrod places it firmly over hers on the whip. She promises to take full responsibility for whatever he chooses to do. She then steps out of the room, leaving him alone with his tormentors and the heavy choice of revenge. A flashback reveals the casual cruelty Enoch once faced. His young tormentor smirks, explaining that a victim who can't fight back is simply more fun. Back in the present, this same man screams a final, desperate threat, but he's cut short. The heavy whip moves with purpose, and in the ensuing chaos, a precious locket bearing a photo of Enoch and Aranrod falls to the ground, its glass shattering. When the grim task is over, Enoch kneels in the rain, his tormentors left motionless around him. He whispers that it hurts as Aranrod rushes to his side. She gently touches his face, asking if he feels better now. Tears stream from his haunted red eyes as he explains he had to endure it. For him, this was a necessary act of survival. Aranrod pulls him into a tight embrace, promising to take full responsibility for what he's done. She vows to stay by his side until the very end, further binding her fate to his. As rain pours down, Aranrod pulls the trembling Enoch into a firm embrace. Looking at the man she once knew, now broken by his past, she makes a solemn promise to protect him. All he can do is whisper her former title, Princess, his voice weak with pain. His mind flashes back to a cold, dark room from his childhood. He sees the disappointed faces of his mother and father looming over him. As a boy, he had desperately begged them not to go, promising he would try harder, but their judgment was absolute. This memory is now replaced by Aranrod's gentle voice. He recalls her telling him it was okay, vowing to stay by his side until the very end. She had given him full permission to do what was necessary, accepting any guilt herself. By shouldering the weight of his revenge, she has bound her fate completely to his. Enoch wakes with a gasp, the rain outside matching the turmoil in his mind. He clutches his head, wondering why that specific dream is haunting him now. A voice cuts through his confusion as Aranrod asks if he's awake. Her presence triggers a powerful memory from their youth. In the flashback, a young princess Aranrod finds Enoch in her room late at night. He quietly explains he came because he heard she was in pain. Concerned, she asks if his usual tormentors were bothering him again. He assures her no one picks fights with him anymore, though his inner thoughts tell a different story. He knows his safety is temporary, entirely dependent on her favor. He sees himself as nothing more than a toy the Emperor gave the princess, one that could be discarded the moment he became a problem. Unaware of his dark thoughts, the young princess simply says she brought him food, admitting she heard him crying. The young princess asks Enoch if he was sniffling, but he denies it, trying to hide his distress. He tells her she shouldn't feel burdened, admitting he's shown her a side of himself he doesn't usually reveal. Though she suggests he can go, he realizes words alone won't send her away. He gives in and quickly finishes the food and medicine she brought. Noticing his empty plate, Aranhrod offers him a sweet, telling him to open his mouth. The gesture reminds him of how she used to watch over him. Flustered, he insists this is no way to treat a grown man and asks her never to do it again. She innocently asks why, wondering if he's just worried about someone seeing them together. She assures him she came secretly and won't tell anyone. But that's not his concern. He leans in closer, asking what would happen if he were to do something to her. He warns her to be careful, explaining that there are far too many men desperate to get close to a princess of her age. Flustered by his intense warning, the young princess promises to be careful. Enoch leans in closer, his voice low, admitting that he wouldn't mind if she were the one trying to get his attention. Just as quickly, he pulls back, deciding that's enough for the night. He stands and offers to escort her back to the palace, concerned about the late hour. Aranhrod, however, brightly refuses. She proudly declares that she knows all the secret shortcuts where nobody ever goes. Enoch watches her, a complex look on his face, as his red eyes seem to darken for a moment. She leads him to a hidden path behind a curtain of ivy, tells him she'll be fine from there, and slips away into the night. He's left alone in the darkness, watching her go and wondering when she learned to navigate the castle's secrets all by herself. Aranhrod stops, telling Enoch she can continue on her own from here. He dismisses her thanks, asking if she's certain she wants him to come along. He warns that the path is dangerously narrow, but she firmly tells him not to make her repeat herself and starts to lead the way. They slip into a dark, forgotten passage between the castle walls. Enoch is baffled, wondering how she even found this place. She explains she discovered it on a walk, figuring it was an old route used by servants. Watching how expertly she moves, he realizes this isn't her first time sneaking out. He asks if she's scared, offering her a chance to turn back. His red eyes show his deep concern. But Aranhrod's resolve is unwavering. She declares that they've come too far to retreat now. As they walk through the hidden corridor, Enoch quietly admits to himself that he never pictured he'd be sharing a secret like this with her. Aranhrod proudly explains this is her secret passageway, a place only she has known for a long time. Enoch grabs her, his expression turning serious. He tells her to be quiet, warning that even small sounds travel far at night, and they can't risk getting caught. Flustered by their sudden closeness, Aranhrod can only whisper an apology. They finally emerge from the passage, safe outside the palace walls. She thanks him, but he's staring up in disbelief. He asks if she's actually planning on climbing that high. Aranhrod just smiles, confidently assuring him that she's good at this sort of thing. Exhausted by her endless surprises, Enoch can only sigh, thinking he doesn't have the energy to be annoyed anymore. He watches her, musing that it's hard to believe someone like her came from the conniving emperor and empress. Without warning, she grabs his shirt, telling him to hold still. Before he can react, she uses his shoulder as a launch pad to hoist herself up onto the ledge, leaving him stunned below. Enoch tells Aranhrod to start climbing, promising to hold her steady. But his assurance does little to calm her nerves, and she panics, warning him that they're going to fall. He tells her to hold on, but her frantic movements make them lose their balance. The two come crashing down to the ground below. She lands directly on top of him and immediately apologizes. Dazed from the impact, Enoch simply stares up at the sky and mutters something about a star. Confused, Aranhrod asks if he's okay. He quickly sits up, brushing off her concern, asking if she's been hurt. She reassures him that she's fine, relieved the fall wasn't too serious. Clearly annoyed, Enoch tells her that if she understands the trouble she causes, she should stop visiting him at night. But Aranhrod just smiles, cheekily asking if that means it's okay for her to visit during the day. Her playful question leaves him utterly speechless. Flustered, Enoch insists that a daytime visit is not what he meant at all. But before he can scold her further, Aranhrod excitedly tells him to look up. A brilliant shooting star cuts across the night sky. As they watch it together, she thinks to herself how strange it is that the same sky can suddenly look so much more beautiful. She finally understands the simple joy of sharing a view with someone she likes. Enoch watches her, captivated and speechless. But the beautiful moment is tinged with a heavy premonition. The shooting star seems an omen that something unexpected is about to happen. Aranhrod has a sudden feeling that her entire future and everything she possesses will be drastically changed because of this one person. Her life might soon shift entirely according to his will, whether she wants it to or not. A few years later, the memory shifts to the palace library, where a young princess Aranhrod tries to get Enoch's attention. She asks if he is even listening, but he's buried in paperwork. She calls him a liar, pouting that he's always focused on his duties. Enoch calmly replies that it's time for him to work, and reminds her that she should be attending her etiquette lessons. Aranhrod just laughs, admitting that's exactly why she's hiding there. He teases her, noting that he just saw the steward pass by in the hall. In a flash of panic, she begs him not to call him over. She quickly changes the subject, mentioning that dinner will be in the main palace, because Lord Claird has arrived. At the mention of the name, Enoch's demeanor turns icy. The playful atmosphere evaporates as his eyes glow a dangerous red. The happy memory is suddenly corrupted by the sound of harsh accusations, with voices screaming that he was a traitor who was using the princess. Lord Claird had always viewed Enoch as a problem. This animosity came to a head when Claird physically confronted him, delivering a severe threat. Enoch would be eliminated the day he became the princess's fiancé. After an attack left Enoch injured, a protective Aranhrod moved his quarters into her own palace. This decision only enraged Claird, who couldn't believe the princess would worry over a mere servant. But for years, Aranhrod had personally sheltered and cared for Enoch. She leads him into the garden, promising to take responsibility if he gets scolded. She simply wanted to cheer him up after seeing him look so down in the library. On a bridge, she asks if she made some mistake. Enoch quietly says no, but she knows he's lying again. He keeps his true feelings hidden, believing it's better to take a few hits than to show her a side of himself that would only make her cry. In his eyes, she was innocent and weak, and her affection was a double-edged sword. The emperor himself couldn't stand seeing his daughter so attached to a servant. From the very beginning, their relationship had an expiration date. Aranhrod, completely naive to the situation, threw herself wholeheartedly into what she believed was love. In reality, Enoch was simply biding his time, waiting for the perfect moment to betray her and bring her world crashing down. Sensing his inner conflict, Aranhrod tells him that he doesn't have to talk if he's not ready. She gently takes his hand, assuring him that she will always be on his side. Internally, Enoch dismisses her promise as nonsense, convinced that he could never truly trust her. Despite his dark thoughts, he makes a surprising request, asking her to cancel her meeting with Lord Claird. Instead, he offers to spend the entire day with her. When a blushing Aranhrod asks why, he explains it's an early birthday present, since he can't prepare a proper gift. Overjoyed by the sudden attention, she eagerly accepts his offer. Aranhrod agrees immediately, her face flushing with happiness. She tells him she is just happy he remembered her birthday and decides to send a letter to Lord Claird claiming illness to cancel their meeting. With the day now free, she excitedly asks Enoch for his plan. But Enoch hesitates, his expression growing tense. Aranhrod calls his name, concerned by his sudden silence. Instead of speaking, he abruptly leans in and closes the distance between them. The kiss starts gently but quickly escalates, becoming forceful and almost desperate. His hidden turmoil surfaces, leaving the princess breathless and shocked by the raw intensity. He pulls back just as suddenly, immediately stammering an apology for his forwardness. But Aranhrod stops him. With a surprisingly steady gaze, she admits she really liked it. Then, she boldly asks if they can do it again, leaving him stunned. Enoch finds himself in a battle with his own principles. He always looked down on people who let emotion and irrational desire take over. But now, he realizes that once you acknowledge those feelings in yourself, there's no going back. The scene shifts to a quiet moment after their passionate exchange. Enoch remarks that Aranhrod looks fine now, a clear reference to how intense their last encounter was. But the princess isn't shy at all. Instead, she leans in, cheekily telling him it's because he has gotten much better at it. Growing even bolder, she lies beside him and admits there's something she's been curious about. When he tells her to ask, her hand moves to a very personal area. With genuine innocence, she asks why he's having such a strong physical reaction. The unexpected question leaves Enoch completely stunned, his face flushing red as he's rendered utterly speechless. For the first time, the naive princess has him completely cornered. Cornered by her innocent but direct question, a flustered Enoch quickly grabs her hand, telling her to stop. His face flushes as he insists it's not what she thinks. After a tense moment, he composes himself and looks her directly in the eye. He explains that his physical reaction is simply proof that he truly enjoys being with her. This honest answer makes Aranhrod absolutely radiant. She beams, confessing that she feels the same way, so much so that her heart feels like it might burst. Her pure joy seems to shatter his composure. He pulls her into a desperate embrace, and the room fades into a whirlwind of raw emotion. All their unspoken feelings are unleashed in a powerful, overwhelming moment. But once the intensity settles, the atmosphere grows cold. Aranhrod notices his troubled expression and asks what's wrong. Enoch remains silent, lost in his own dark thoughts, leaving her completely confused by his sudden shift. The tender moment shifts as Enoch holds Aranhrod so tightly she can barely breathe. Pulling away, her eyes land on deep scars crisscrossing his chest. Her immediate concern shows as she reaches out, asking if his old enemies were still causing him trouble. Enoch quickly brushes off her worry, claiming they are just old injuries from his days in night training. The conversation then takes a softer turn when Aranhrod asks if he remembers the deep love her own parents shared. This simple question sends Enoch into a dark memory. He recalls his own parents, a couple so consumed by their love for each other that there was none left for him. He was never treated like a son, only an heir to be trained and molded. He reflects with a cold bitterness that they must have been happy in the end, since they got their wish to die together, reinforcing the profound loneliness that has shaped him. Enoch's mind plunges into a dark place. He questions how he can ever find happiness, feeling as though he has nothing and no one left by his side. Aranhrod sees the deep torment etched on his face. She expresses profound regret, telling him his past must have hurt and that she should have been there to protect him. Her sincere words only amplify his internal conflict. He silently questions what she truly thinks of him. Are her feelings real, or are they just a foolish echo from their shared youth? As he recalls his parents' all-consuming bond, Aranhrod cuts through his spiraling thoughts. She buries her face in his chest and declares firmly that she loves him. The confession stops him cold. As she whispers it again, her voice thick with emotion, they hold each other in a desperate embrace. A few days later, they travel in silence under a gloomy sky, the heavy atmosphere reflecting their uncertain future as they approach a secluded villa. The carriage ride is silent, the atmosphere thick with unspoken words. As the gloomy landscape rolls by, Aranhrod's mind drifts back to a time of warmth and safety. She recalls her father holding her close, his voice laced with gentle concern. He told her he understood how she felt but urged her that she couldn't live this way forever. She could only agree. In the memory, her mother praised her for becoming a dependable young woman, and her father, noting her upcoming birthday, playfully offered to teach her how to wield a sword. He even asked if she was lying to him again, a familiar joke between them. The warmth of the memory fades as the sky darkens and rain begins to lash against the carriage window. Snapped back to the present, Aranhrod watches the downpour. She wonders aloud if they will even make it to their destination today, the sudden storm reflecting their uncertain future. Rourke calmly dismisses the storm, noting that summer downpours are common and will pass soon. But just as he speaks, a loud crack echoes from outside. A wheel splinters, sending the carriage careening violently off the road. Aranhrod cries out as she's thrown against the wall, but Rourke instantly pulls her into a tight, protective embrace. Dazed on the ground amidst the wreckage, she asks what's happening. He tells her he'll go check outside. As he steps out into the rain, Aranhrod calls for him to be careful. But the chaotic scene triggers a horrifying memory. Suddenly, she's a young girl again, running through a storm towards another wrecked carriage. A guard shouts her title, but she can only stare in horror at the terrible sight ahead. The memory clarifies as she realizes this is how she lost her parents, crying out for her father and mother in pure anguish. Dazed from the crash, Aranhrod watches Rourke step out into the downpour to inspect the wreckage. With a weak, scraped hand, she reaches out, quietly pleading for him to be safe. But the sight of the destroyed carriage in the relentless storm triggers something deep within her. The present blurs, replaced by a past nightmare she can never escape. Sometime after the tragedy, a grieving Aranhrod, dressed in black, knocks a picture frame from a desk. It falls to the floor with a sharp crack. She picks it up, revealing a portrait of her once happy family, a painful reminder of a life now gone forever. Emperor Aranhrod's first royal tour begins with a disagreement. While she requested a simple procession, her aides insist on flawless, grand preparations. Her annoyance deepens when she spots Grand Duke Rourke and his personal knights. She confronts him, questioning his presence and stating his men are not needed. Rourke remains perfectly calm, delivering a chilling reminder of a king who recently met his end in a supposedly secure villa. He notes that no matter how many guards she has, they can't follow her into her private chambers. The unspoken threat hangs in the air, leaving Aranhrod visibly unsettled. Having made his point, Rourke clicks his tongue dismissively. He tells her to do as she pleases but immediately overrides her, ordering the entire procession to move out. As their carriage rumbles through the forest, Aranhrod tries to find a small moment of peace, asking her maids to let her enjoy the refreshing breeze from the window a while longer. Inside the carriage, Aranhrod allows herself a rare moment of peace. Gazing out the window, she remarks that leaving the palace after so long feels like she can finally breathe again. One of her maids, seeing her relaxed expression, comments that the emperor finally looks her age and wishes she would smile more often. A senior maid quickly tries to apologize for the informal remark, but Aranhrod stops her. She explains that she deliberately avoids smiling, believing an emperor who appears too young can't command authority from the nobles. But the truth is far more tragic. Internally, she admits she used to smile all the time. The thought is immediately corrupted by a dark memory of Rourke's sinister expression. His chilling voice echoes in her mind, recalling how he told her that if she couldn't smile, shedding tears would be more than enough. Suddenly, the carriage curtain is pulled shut, plunging her back into dimness. When a maid asks if she's done looking outside, Aranhrod just quietly agrees, her brief moment of freedom completely shattered. The imperial procession arrives at the estate of an elderly count, who formally greets Aranhrod as the son of the empire. She politely asks after his health, and he assures her he's doing well. Aranhrod announces that she'll be starting her tour in his lands and staying for a while. The count humbly accepts the honor, welcoming her to his home. As they walk inside, however, Rourke quietly reaches for Aranhrod's hand. She flinches, but he seizes it firmly. With his eyes glowing a menacing red, he leans in close to her ear. He whispers that if anyone saw them, they might easily mistake him for her executioner, not her loyal subject. Just as quickly, he releases the pressure on her hand, patting it gently and telling her not to worry. The quiet threat leaves Aranhrod shaken. Nearby, a young noblewoman watches their tense exchange with a troubled expression. Later, at a lavish dinner, the count obliviously asks if the food is to Her Majesty's taste. At the lavish dinner, the count proudly praises the meal, crediting his land's fresh ingredients and the chef's remarkable skill. Aranhrod, however, silently observes the nobles fawning over Rourke more than their own emperor. She quickly understands the reason. The count's granddaughter, Cordelia, is visibly captivated by the Grand Duke. Seizing the moment, the count begins boasting about Cordelia's singing talent. The young woman politely protests, but her grandfather turns to Rourke for reinforcement, asking if a joyful song would be welcome. With his gaze fixed on his wine, Rourke gives a quiet, chilling agreement. His single word is enough. Cordelia rises to perform, stating it would be impolite to refuse. As her sweet voice fills the hall, Rourke listens with an unreadable expression. Aranhrod watches him, a somber stillness in her eyes. The music tries to create a festive mood, but it can't hide the cold distance separating the emperor and her captor at the long table. During her tour, the emperor finds a rare moment of peace by the water. She thanks the elderly count for the beautiful view, wishing aloud that the palace had such scenery. But the calm is fleeting. The sight triggers a dark thought, and her mind flashes to an image of a lone, imposing figure standing in a shadowy hall. That is her true reality. Shaking off the grim memory, Aranhrod's focus shifts to a problem: a collapsed riverbank. She asks the count about the damage from the recent rainy season. He sighs, explaining the complicated situation. They need to rebuild the embankment, but part of the river runs through the land of Marquis Nerlin. The stubborn nobleman has refused to grant permission for years, stopping all progress. Even when the count offered to pay for the entire project himself, the Marquis wouldn't budge. Aranhrod listens, another political roadblock now standing in her way. Looking over the damaged riverbank, Aranhrod tells the elderly count that the loss of life from the floods eats at her every year. The count explains the political deadlock. The stubborn Marquis Nerlin refuses to allow the necessary repairs on his land, stopping all progress. Sensing an opportunity to assert her authority, Aranhrod remarks that it's a shame she can't step in. The count's eyes widen with hope, asking if she truly would. It all clicks for Aranhrod. This was his plan all along. She calmly notes that she heard the Marquis happens to be staying at his nearby villa. With a resolved expression, she agrees to mediate the conflict, stating firmly that the people's safety comes first. The overjoyed Count thanks her profusely. As she walks on, he reconsiders the rumors he'd heard about a sickly, neglectful ruler. The woman he just spoke to is a serious emperor, dedicated to her duties and her people. As Aranhrod finishes her conversation with the Count, another noble approaches. It's the charming Duke Silas, who formally greets the emperor and apologizes for not addressing her sooner. She graciously tells him not to worry. After a moment of polite small talk about the fresh air, Aranhrod decides to retreat. She mentions the river breeze is getting chilly and excuses herself, encouraging them to continue their walk. But as she turns to leave, her path is blocked. Grand Duke Rourke stands before her. Without a word, he stops her and places his own jacket over her shoulders. He coolly informs her that he can't let her walk back alone, and is certain the others will understand. The Count watches them go, misreading the entire situation. Once they are a few steps away, Rourke's voice drops. He leans in and asks why she wasn't wearing the jacket he provided if she was truly feeling the cold. His question hangs in the air, a quiet reminder of his suffocating control. Back in her chambers, Rourke tells Aranhrod there's no need to see him off. With a sharp look, he remarks that she should have given the jacket to someone else instead. A cold smile crosses his face as he promises that next time, he will follow her example. Aranhrod is left speechless. After he seems to leave, she tries to set a boundary, telling him through the door that he doesn't need to see her off again. She insists she can walk back on her own, noting that her guards are nearby. Suddenly, the door flies open. Before she can react, Rourke closes the distance, grabbing her in an overpowering display of control. The advance leaves her utterly shocked and breathless. He forces her to look at him, his red eyes burning with a cruel satisfaction. He tells her that now, after all this, she's finally looking him in the face. In a shocking display of dominance, Rourke suddenly traps Aranhrod against a window, cutting off her escape. Her mind races with panic as she pleads for him to stop, terrified that someone might see them in such a compromising position. He ignores her fear completely, coldly commanding her not to look away. Aranhrod struggles against his overpowering hold, demanding he release her. Rourke, however, seems to find her resistance amusing, mockingly commenting on how unexpectedly shy she's being. Her desperation grows, and she shouts for him to stop. In the frantic struggle, her nails leave a sharp mark across the back of his hand. But Rourke doesn't even flinch at the injury. The sight of his total indifference is the final blow, draining the last of the fight from her. She is left breathless and defeated, utterly powerless in his grasp as he once again makes it brutally clear who is in control. As Rourke stands before her, drops of blood from the scratch on his hand patter onto the floor. Aranhrod is frozen, unable to look away. He breaks the silence, coldly asking what seems to be troubling her so much. His voice sends her spiraling into her thoughts. She's reminded of their dark arrangement, the price she paid for her position. Aranhrod sees herself for what she has become, a puppet on a golden throne, her strings held firmly in Rourke's hand. She remembers her side of the bargain, to let him have his way, and in return, he would help her survive as the Empress. She accepted the deal, so she scolds herself for fighting back. This cage is suffocating. Her panic shifts when she notices his bleeding hand again, terrified that if the sheets are stained, the maids will find out. Trapped with no good options, she finally breaks. Her voice is barely a whisper as she apologizes, completely defeated. With tears marking her complete defeat, Aranhrod surrenders. Her voice is hollow as she tells Rourke to do whatever he wants, all resistance gone. He looks down at her broken form, but his reaction is unexpected. Seeing how utterly miserable she is, he asks if he can just hold her for a moment. Confused and exhausted by the emotional whiplash, Aranhrod numbly agrees. He pulls her into a quiet embrace, wiping a tear from her cheek. The gesture is so jarringly gentle that it triggers a vivid memory of Enoch, a past filled with genuine affection. Lost in the vision, she barely registers the present. But Rourke yanks her back to reality with a single, devastating question. He asks if she's looking for the ghost of her former lover in him, twisting her fleeting moment of remembered happiness into another form of torment. As Rourke departs, he coolly promises to leave before anyone notices, abandoning Aranhrod in the aftermath of their encounter. The heavy sound of the door closing echoes in the room, leaving the Empress to stand alone, a prisoner in her own palace. The next morning, Aranhrod pushes aside her personal despair to face the duties of the Empire. She has summoned Marquis Nerlin to discuss an urgent matter. Ignoring his attempts at pleasantries, she gets straight to the point. She asks why he is opposing the construction of a river embankment that would protect his territory. The Marquis laughs, completely dismissing her concerns. He casually explains that he sees no need for the project. With a shocking lack of empathy, he states that it's normal for a river to flood. He admits that, at worst, a few lowly tenant farmers might perish each year, but he considers that an acceptable loss compared to spoiling the view of the river. To him, their lives are simply not a priority. The Marquis's complete disregard for his people's lives is the final straw. Aranhrod's patience shatters. She coldly informs him that her investigation revealed a horrifying truth. In the 5 years since the embankment collapsed, nearly 100 people have died or gone missing. Everything in her empire is her business, so how dare he call their tragic deaths no big deal? Her eyes turn to ice. She declares she no longer needs his opinion on the matter, commanding her aides to discuss the repairs with the Count immediately. If there is any further opposition, she promises to personally punish them for defying a direct imperial order. The Marquis is stunned into silence. With a final, dismissive glance, Aranhrod tells her guards to escort the nobleman out. As he's dragged away, he sputters that she was never like this before. His words echo in the now quiet room. She reflects that he's right. Maybe she really is changed, finally realizing she had just been chasing the ghost of a person who is long gone. Standing by a grand fountain, Empress Aranhrod feels a rare moment of relief. The crucial embankment repairs are finally set to begin. She reflects that staying in the palace and making policies is nothing like seeing the empire with her own eyes. She resolves to tour the lands and hold her nobles accountable for their people's well-being. Her determined thoughts are shattered when a voice asks what she's doing. Grand Duke Rourke is there. His sudden appearance triggers a jarring flashback to a very different time. In the memory, a younger woman, looking desperate, tells him to stop if he knows he's being rude. He admits his behavior is wrong but confesses that the thought of never seeing her again fills him with anxiety. Her rejection causes his control to snap. The woman pleads with him, but he ignores her, grabbing a leather strap. He yanks her close, his voice low and firm as he demands that she look at him, leaving her trapped in his chilling embrace. The memory hits Aranhrod like a tidal wave, pulling her back to a time of desperate hope. She sees a younger version of herself pleading with Enoch to look at her. With tears in her eyes, she begs him to let her protect her honor as a lady. He scoffs at her plea, his voice cold as he questions if trying to entice a man under family orders is her definition of honor. Hurt by his suspicion, she fiercely denies it, insisting her feelings are her own. With all her courage, she confesses that she likes him, and has for much longer than he could ever imagine. The memory shifts to his rejection. He gently tells her she will find a better man. Unwilling to accept this, she grabs his arm, impulsively asking him to make her his lover if he is not seeing anyone else. She just wants him to accept her, even if only for a single night. The painful recollection fades, leaving the Empress alone in the darkness. A voice cuts through the night, telling her to come out. It's Grand Duke Rourke, and he asks what she's doing there. Aranhrod insists she wasn't eavesdropping, just passing through the garden. Seemingly unconvinced, Rourke extends a hand and offers to escort her. She accepts, but he doesn't lead her toward her chambers. When she questions their direction, he simply states that he is going back. They soon arrive at her personal carriage. Aranhrod asks where they could possibly be going at this hour. Rourke tells her they aren't going anywhere at all. He steps inside, commenting that the tight space is ideal for avoiding the Count's guards. Before Aranhrod can process his words, he pulls her into the carriage with him. She tells him to wait, but she is left shocked and flustered in the small, dark space. Inside the cramped carriage, Rourke immediately asserts his dominance. He grabs Aranhrod's chin, forcing her to look at him as she calls out his title in protest. He coldly states that ever since she turned him down, he's been thinking. From now on, he has decided he will find ways to please her instead. The threat hangs heavy in the air. He leans closer, his voice a low whisper. He suggests they pretend to go to the old days when he was her humble attendant. Then comes the most chilling command of all. With his eyes glowing a menacing red, he orders her to call him Enoch, just like she used to. Before she can process the cruel demand, he overpowers her, pressing her down into the seat. He makes his intentions terrifyingly clear, leaving Aranhrod trapped and utterly helpless. The man she once begged for a single night of affection now controls her completely, turning her own past love into his cruelest weapon. In the suffocating darkness of the carriage, Rourke completely overpowers Aranrod. He leans in close, his voice a cruel whisper as he asks if this was what she was expecting. Her resistance is useless. Every movement she makes only serves to highlight her helplessness. He watches her with cold intensity, noting that she seems to be enjoying it more than usual, twisting her fear and shock into a sick form of pleasure for himself. Overwhelmed and trapped, the line between the monster before her and the man she once loved blurs into a terrifying nightmare. In a moment of pure desperation, a single name escapes her lips: Enoch. The sound of his old name only seems to encourage him. He continues his relentless assault on her senses, commenting on her tense body before commanding her to relax. Every reaction is a victory for him. As Aranrod lies there, utterly broken, he whispers that this is good. He has finally made it clear that her will, her body, and even her memories are no longer her own. Inside the suffocating confines of the carriage, Rourke's absolute dominance is clear. Aranrod is completely overpowered, caught in a terrifying storm where past love and present cruelty collide. As he presses his advantage, her resistance crumbles into helpless confusion. Lost in the haze, her body betrays her mind as she whispers for him to continue. A cruel, victorious smirk spreads across Rourke's face as he tells her he will indulge her request. The situation intensifies, pushing Aranrod to her breaking point. The man before her and the ghost of her past finally merge into one horrifying reality. In a moment of complete surrender, a single, broken name escapes her lips: Enoch. His glowing red eyes watch her, filled with satisfaction. He has finally won. He made it painfully clear that every part of her, her will, her body, and her most precious memories, now belongs entirely to him. Emperor Aranrod maintains her regal composure as a local lord thanks her profusely. Her work on the river embankment means his people will be safe from the coming rainy season. The lord also mentions his daughter, Cordelia, was too ill with a fever to see the emperor off. Aranrod offers a kind smile, telling him that health must always come first. But as the carriages depart, the empress's facade crumbles. She knows the real reason for Lady Cordelia's absence. She had failed to capture the Grand Duke's attention. Alone, Aranrod wrestles with a sliver of desperate hope. She reflects on Rourke's surprisingly principled side, wondering if his marriage will finally end her torment. This hope is instantly crushed by a terrifying thought. What happens if he decides she is of no more value to him once he is married? Will she be cast aside? The haunting image of a hunting trophy flashes through her mind, a decoration to be admired, then forgotten. The royal tour reaches its final destination, the breathtaking Duchy of Heston. Inside her carriage, Emperor Aranrod graciously thanks her ladies-in-waiting for accompanying her while maintaining her regal composure. Her attendants, however, can't shake a bad feeling. They whisper amongst themselves about the heavy mood between the Emperor and Grand Duke Rourke, admitting their uncertainty, yet clearly feeling the strain. As they pull up to the estate, an aide informs them the head butler is on his way. While they wait in the uncomfortable silence, Aranrod senses Rourke's piercing gaze on her. Unable to stand it, she finally asks if he has something to say. He coldly dismisses her, claiming there's nothing on his mind. Aranrod is left flustered and humiliated. Ever since their intense encounter in the other carriage, an unsettling distance has grown between them, leaving her constantly on edge. Haunted by a memory of a much more intimate moment, Aranrod wrestles with Rourke's coldness. She wonders if he's angry that her first imperial tour was to Heston instead of his own duchy. Trying to smooth things over, she tentatively suggests visiting the Grand Duchy of Rourke on her next tour. Rourke immediately shuts her down, claiming there's nothing worth seeing. Aranrod insists it's not for sightseeing, promising she'll visit next time. But then, the truth dawns on her. She remembers that his parents, the former Grand Duke and Duchess, were executed without a trial. His people haven't forgotten. He would rather keep her away completely than have her witness their resentment. In that coldness, she sees a flicker of the protective Enoch she once knew. Their tense silence is broken by the arrival of Duke Silas, who warmly welcomes the Emperor to his estate. He glances at Rourke with surprise, commenting that he thought the Grand Duke was busy in the capital. Rourke's expression becomes even more grim. Rourke tries to justify his presence, claiming he heard Duke Silas was overwhelmed with work. Unfazed, Silas smoothly replies that a host must always be present for his guests, explaining he hurried back specifically to welcome the emperor. Putting on a charming smile, Silas turns his full attention to Aranrod. He had privately hoped the two rivals would be kept apart, but now he focuses on being a good host. He warmly asks if this is her first visit to his duchy, and if there's anything she'd like to see. Looking a bit lost, Aranrod admits she doesn't know the area. Seizing the opportunity, Silas offers to personally show her around. Later, he leads her to a breathtaking cliffside view. Aranrod is left speechless, captivated by the magnificent Sea of Danner. The wind whips through her hair as a distant memory surfaces. She realizes with a pang of nostalgia that she has only seen the ocean once before, back when she was just a child. Aranrod recalls her first glimpse of the sea as a child, realizing it was never as clear as the view before her now. Duke Silas approaches cautiously, calling out her name, but she seems lost in the moment. Acting on impulse, Aranrod slips off her shoes and walks barefoot onto the sand, letting the cool waves wash over her feet. She moves with a rare freedom, a genuine smile gracing her lips as she basks in the refreshing sea air. Duke Silas follows, asking if she truly finds the ocean so fascinating. Turning to him, Aranrod happily confirms that she does. Farther down the beach, Rourke watches the entire exchange. His gaze is fixed on Aranrod, a silent and possessive observer of this small, unguarded moment of her happiness. He says nothing, his intense eyes tracking her every move as she enjoys a simple pleasure she has been denied for so long. As Aranrod and Duke Silas stand on the cliff, the setting sun paints the sky in brilliant hues. Elsewhere, Grand Duke Rourke finds himself lost in thought. He once told himself he'd seen the Empress's smile so many times it was meaningless, just a hollow gesture. But now, seeing her genuine happiness, he questions why he can't bring himself to demand she smile for him like she used to. He realizes this pure joy is something he can't command. Back on the cliff, Duke Silas breaks the comfortable silence, asking the Emperor how she finds the sea. Looking out at the waves, she softly replies that it's wonderful. Genuinely pleased, Silas beams, proudly declaring that nowhere else has a sunset as beautiful as this one. Lost in the vastness of the ocean, Aranrod looks up, as if just noticing the spectacular sky. The two stand together, taking in the magnificent view before she quietly asks him if he likes it. Duke Silas agrees, remarking how different the sunset is from the view back at the palace. From a distance, Rourke watches their easy interaction, his expression unreadable. Aranrod then notices Silas is holding something and asks what it is. He cheerfully presents a cloak, explaining his plan to take her to the nearby night market once the sun sets, suggesting her current attire would draw too much attention. But their moment is cut short. Grand Duke Rourke suddenly appears before them, holding Aranrod's shoes. He quietly tells her it's time to go. Aranrod protests, saying he didn't have to come and that she can walk herself. Ignoring her completely, Rourke kneels down in the sand right in front of her. Duke Silas watches in disbelief as the most powerful man in the Empire gently takes the Emperor's foot and puts her shoe back on. This public display of devotion feels deeply unsettling, a clear message meant for everyone to see. Despite Rourke's unsettling display, the group heads into the lively night market, all disguised under simple cloaks. The streets are packed, and Duke Silas places a protective arm around Aranrod to guide her through the crowd. He apologizes for the closeness, but quietly admits that it's nice. Beside them, Rourke's expression darkens as he watches the two. They pass vendors selling everything from incense to jewelry. Aranrod seems momentarily flustered by the attention but also intrigued by the vibrant atmosphere. In a quieter moment, Silas surprises her with a small gift. It's a simple bracelet with a flower charm he bought after noticing her looking at it earlier. Touched by his thoughtfulness, Aranrod examines the charm, realizing it's a windflower, just like the ones in the palace garden she'd never paid attention to before. Silas explains that he'd also noticed her looking at the flowers back at the palace. This subtle observation stands in stark contrast to Rourke's suffocating control, showing an entirely different kind of attention. Aranrod thanks Silas for the beautiful necklace, a brief, happy moment that doesn't go unnoticed. From the side, Rourke watches them, his red eyes revealing a deep-seated jealousy. Trying to keep the mood light, Aranrod asks Silas what he bought. He shows her a biography of Basilia II, a legendary empress from 200 years ago who built the empire. Silas mentions that if he ever wrote a play about Aranrod, he'd use Basilia's reign as inspiration. Aranhrod laughs, saying her time is too peaceful for a war hero's tale. With a sharp glance at Rourke, Silas agrees, crediting the current peace to the Grand Duke's swift actions. Rourke smoothly accepts the loaded compliment and offers Silas a gift in return, one of his favorite books. Aranhrod playfully calls Silas a liar for pretending to be impressed. But her laughter dies when she overhears a shocking discussion nearby. A citizen is being charged 70% of their harvest as rent, a fact that instantly brings the burdened emperor crashing back to reality. The men's conversation pulls Aranhrod from her brief moment of happiness. One man says the 70% rent is actually better than in other regions, where it can climb as high as 85%. He wishes for a new law to change things, grimly noting that more people die from starvation than the cold during winter. The crushing weight of her duty returns instantly. As the men hurry away, Aranhrod stops, her face pale. She turns to Silas and Rourke, asking if what she just heard is true. The law clearly states that rent cannot exceed 50% of the harvest. Silas, looking worried, admits he knew some nobles ignored the law, but had no idea it was this severe. Frustration boils inside Aranhrod. She clenches her fist, her mind filled with images of her starving people. It's obvious no one can survive giving up more than half of their food. She questions why this is happening, feeling utterly powerless as the emperor. It seems there is nothing she can do. Back in her chambers, the weight of her powerlessness hangs over Aranhrod. Rourke corners her as she tries to leave, pulling her close despite her protests. He asks why she's in a hurry, reminding her they are alone. Still deeply troubled by the market, she tells him she isn't in the mood, but he dismisses her concerns. He states she can't possibly know everything happening outside the palace and that people will always break the law. Feeling utterly defeated, Aranhrod blames herself, wishing she could be a wiser ruler. Rourke holds her, telling her she doesn't need to change. His comfort, however, is a cage. He warns her not to trust the nobles so easily. His main target is Duke Silas. Aranhrod defends her friend, but Rourke coldly labels Silas a mere opportunist who lacks the backbone to truly help her rule. To drive his point home, he leans in close, his chilling possessiveness making it clear who is truly in control, leaving her stunned and silent. That night, a troubled Duke Silas wanders the palace halls, holding a candle. He hopes Aranhrod isn't dwelling on the day's events, frustrated that his attempts to cheer her up failed. His thoughts are interrupted by a faint, distressed sound. He pauses, realizing it's coming from the Empress's chambers. Curiosity and concern pull him toward the slightly ajar door. Peeking inside, he's stunned by what he sees. Grand Duke Rourke is in a compromising position with a woman, his grip firm and unrelenting. From his vantage point, Silas can't recognize the Empress and immediately draws the wrong conclusion. He assumes Rourke has snuck a maid into the royal quarters for a private encounter. Silas completely misreads the tense and disturbing scene, believing it to be a simple affair, unaware that the woman being held against her will is none other than Aranhrod herself. He has no idea of the true horror unfolding just a few feet away. Duke Silas freezes at the doorway, his eyes wide with disbelief. Through the crack, he sees Grand Duke Rourke in a compromising position with a woman, his grip firm and unrelenting. Silas's mind races with a shocking thought. If this man is occupying Her Majesty's chambers, then where on earth is the Empress? He quickly concludes that the woman must be a palace maid, caught in a secret, reckless affair with the powerful Duke. He is completely oblivious to the grim reality. The woman is Aranhrod, and this is no romance. She desperately pleads for Rourke to stop, her voice choked with terror that someone might see her in this humiliating state. But he ignores her, his actions a cold, overwhelming display of power asserting complete control over her. Her struggles are utterly futile. Horrified by the scene he is so terribly misunderstood, Silas quietly retreats from the door, leaving the Empress completely alone in her gilded nightmare. After the night's terrifying ordeal, a shaken Aranhrod tries to resume her duties. While an aide concludes a report on an inspection tour, she is visibly distracted and worn down. The moment they are alone, Grand Duke Rourke enters the room. He approaches her, gripping her chin to study her face, and asks if she's feeling unwell. Aranhrod attempts to brush off his concern, insisting she's fine. But his demeanor instantly shifts. His eyes flash with a dangerous red as he overpowers her, silencing her with an aggressive kiss. Startled, she demands to know what he's doing. Rourke's voice is cold and menacing. He tells her she knows exactly what happens when she dares to let her guard down. He cruelly adds that she had seemed so relaxed lately, He assumed she was finally ready to submit to him completely. His words serve as a chilling reminder that any moment of peace she finds will be swiftly taken away, reinforcing his absolute control over her. Rourke feigns concern, asking Aranrod why she seems so troubled. She tries to dismiss it as simple fatigue, but he presses, insisting he wants to help fix whatever is bothering her. Finally, her composure cracks. With a trembling voice, she confesses her terror. Someone saw them together during the incident at his estate. Aranrod panics, asking what they'll do if rumors spread, reminding him that this is exactly why she told him to stop. But Rourke is completely unfazed by her fear. He asks if she's really that worked up about people discovering what happened between them. Aghast, Aranrod fires back that of course she is. They aren't married or even lovers, and a scandal would be ruinous. He leans over her desk, a grim solution in his eyes. If she's so worried about what people will think, he calmly suggests they simply announce they are lovers. Before she can process his words, he pulls her close, leaving her stunned by his twisted logic. Aranrod is speechless as Rourke calmly lays out his twisted logic. He leans closer, asking if what he's been doing, sticking by her side every night and whispering to her, isn't basically what lovers do. His words are a chilling attempt to reframe his control as romance. Disgusted, Aranrod shoves him away. She tells him to stop talking like that, insisting that what he shows her is not affection. Rourke just smirks, coldly asking if she even knows what affection is, claiming he understands it far better than she ever could. The cruel question sends her mind flashing back to the real Enoch. She remembers a time when just looking at him brought tears of joy, and saying his name felt easy and right. Snapping her back to the grim present, Rourke notes her hesitation. If she can't accept the title of lover, he presents another option. He will become Her Majesty's official paramour, cementing his position and their horrifying arrangement for the entire empire to see. Rourke dismisses her shock, mockingly calling himself a mere servant and claiming it would be an honor to become her official paramour. He continues his psychological assault, saying he knows her feelings for him aren't cheap and that not everyone loves as nobly as she claims to. His words trigger a painful memory of her innocent past with the real Enoch, and she weakly begs him to stop. Ignoring her plea, Rourke pulls her into his arms, promising to handle the problem so she won't have to worry. His solution is simple and brutal. He will find the man who saw them and silence him for good. Aranrod recoils, horrified, asking if he truly intends to kill an innocent person. Rourke's expression remains cold as he explains the man committed an insolent act and must pay the price. His eyes glint red as he calmly adds that people are often eliminated for far more trivial reasons, like forgetting a superior's name or eating a little extra bread. Overwhelmed by guilt, Aranrod questions if this torment is her sin for breaking her promise to protect Enoch long ago. The man she loved is gone, replaced by a cruel figure here to collect a debt. The thought brings a wave of unbearable sadness. Snapping out of her despair, she grabs Rourke's arm, pleading with him not to harm the witness and to find a humane solution. Rourke looks down, a cold smirk playing on his lips as he notes how particular she is for a ruler. Hope flickers in her eyes as she asks for confirmation that he won't eliminate the man. Pulling her into a firm embrace, Rourke agrees to do as she wishes. However, his expression remains calculating and void of warmth. He tells her to finally understand that few servants are as loyal as he is, a chilling reminder that her small victory is just another one of his games. A new visitor arrives, causing Duke Silas to jump to his feet. He greets Emperor Aranrod with the formal title, Son of the Empire, and she responds with polite thanks. After a respectful kiss to her hand, he fondly recalls a sunset they once watched together. However, Aranrod cuts through the pleasantries and asks why he has come. The mood shifts to business. Silas presents a report detailing a serious pirate problem near Dana Fort. He explains that while the pirates' base has been located, his own forces are too weak to launch an attack, warning that continued raids will cause significant economic losses for the region. Aranrod immediately understands he needs military support. When Silas requests at least 3 large warships, she agrees without a moment's hesitation. She decides to make an example of them and adds that she will also seek aid from other nobles. Her suggestion of involving the Grand Duke of Rourke causes a subtle, unreadable expression to cross Silas's face. As the military plan takes shape, Duke Silas finds himself lost in thought, questioning the true relationship between the Emperor and Grand Duke Rourke. He realizes their dynamic has been strange from the very beginning. A memory surfaces of a day on the beach when Rourke acted less like a powerful noble and more like a devoted servant. Silas has observed that even though Aranhrod seems uncomfortable around the Grand Duke, she always ends up relying on him and trusting him completely to solve her problems. Silas feels he knows the official story, but something compels him to uncover the truth, a desire fueled by his own developing feelings for the Emperor. Returning to the present, he makes a bold move. He informs Aranhrod that after dealing with the pirates, he won't be returning to the capital for a while. Surprised, she asks how long he'll be away. Taking her hand, Silas looks at her with determination and announces he plans to be gone for at least a year. An aide arrives at the palace, asking if the Emperor is available. A maid nearby quietly wonders if Her Majesty is feeling unwell again. However, a blonde official steps in to clarify the situation. He reports that Grand Duke Rourke entered the palace a short while ago, and he and the Emperor went to the rear garden together. The aide insists his business is urgent and cannot wait, declaring his intention to go to the garden himself. Meanwhile, in a private meeting, Aranhrod questions Duke Silas's sudden announcement. She asks if something has happened that will prevent him from returning to the capital. Silas explains that it is nothing serious. He simply feels he has been neglecting his own territory. He tells her the capital makes it too easy to become complacent and assures her that he will leave a representative she can summon anytime. Aranhrod accepts his reasoning, acknowledging the immense task of managing his lands. But as she speaks, she grips her necklace, her expression revealing a quiet disappointment that he is leaving. Aranhrod looks at Duke Silas, asking him to at least visit the capital occasionally for her sake. Silas pauses, his hand clenching into a tight fist, before he quietly agrees that he will try. As he walks through the palace, his true thoughts surface. The decision to leave was impulsive, a desperate attempt to create distance. He hopes that by not seeing the Empress, he can erase the feelings he has for her, believing they should never have started. He knows his place. There is no way he could ever win against the Grand Duke, and resisting a foregone conclusion is simply foolish. Suddenly he stops. Down the hall, he sees Rourke cornering Aranhrod on a balcony, his hand gripping her arm. Silas watches, frozen, as the Grand Duke asserts his control, pulling the visibly distressed Empress away. In that moment, Silas understands his role is merely to be a bystander to a dynamic far darker and more possessive than he ever imagined. In the palace garden, Grand Duke Rourke confronts Emperor Aranhrod about her plan to send military support to Dana, suggesting the move is excessive for a pirate problem. Aranhrod counters that it's better to eliminate the threat completely. She explains that while all life is precious, her primary duty is to protect the citizens of the Empire. She adds that Dana is a place that taught her a great deal. Rourke seizes on this, asking what she thought of its lord, Duke Heston. The question startles Aranhrod, who demands to know why he keeps mentioning the man. Rourke dismisses the Duke as unimportant, his tone shifting. He declares the real priority is finding the person who witnessed them together. His eyes flash with a dangerous red as he reveals his search has come up empty. The sudden intensity of the conversation makes Aranhrod feel faint, and she stumbles. Rourke catches her immediately, ending her schedule for the day and telling her to retire. With Rourke supporting her, the unsteady Aranhrod insists she can walk by herself. He questions her stability, offering to carry her if she's uncomfortable. Their tense exchange is suddenly interrupted by Duke Silas, who apologizes for intruding, explaining he felt he hadn't said a proper farewell. Rourke attempts to dismiss him, curtly stating that the Empress is unwell. However, Aranhrod calmly overrules him, telling him he worries unnecessarily before inviting Silas to join her for tea. As they walk away, Rourke's expression darkens. His mind flashes back to his hunt for the person who witnessed him with Aranhrod. The search had narrowed it down to one missing name, Duke Heston himself. A dangerous red glint appears in his eyes. Later, Aranhrod concludes her meeting with Silas. She asks about his departure plans and promises to prepare his supplies quickly, ensuring he won't be delayed because of her. After their meeting, Duke Silas makes a parting joke, hoping his horse can handle the weight of the supplies Aranhrod promised. When she doesn't respond, he grows concerned. His lighthearted mood vanishes when he notices a vivid mark just below her collar. Aranhrod instinctively recoils, her expression a mix of panic and deep shame. This reaction puzzles Silas. Silas thinks a woman in love wouldn't look so utterly humiliated by a sign of affection from her partner. A dark suspicion takes root in his mind as he observes her distress. He begins to wonder if the Grand Duke is forcing his attention on the Empress. A memory surfaces, sharp and clear. A flashback shows a single blue eye watching from the shadows. In that moment of chilling realization, Silas understands. He was the one who witnessed Rourke and Aranhrod together that night. He is the person Rourke has been hunting all this time. With the crushing realization that Duke Silas was the witness he's been hunting, Rourke watches the man's every move. Silas, his face etched with concern after seeing the mark on Aranhrod, tries to speak to her. But Aranhrod recoils, ordering him to stay back. She's overwhelmed by a storm of shame, convinced she must have looked like a complete fool in his eyes. Silas quickly insists that isn't true, but she can't hear him. To protect her secret, she pushes him away with cold indifference, telling him to spread rumors if he must because she won't be swayed. Finally breaking down, she hides her face and issues a chilling command. She banishes Duke Silas, confining him to his domain for the rest of his life. When he stands there, stunned into silence, she screams at him to leave. Seeing the desperation behind her cruel words, Silas understands her impossible position. He bows his head and accepts the devastating order, leaving her more alone than ever. As workers load carriages for his departure, Duke Silas stands alone, lost in thought. He wonders if he should have just pretended he saw nothing. He reflects that if he had, at least he wouldn't be haunted by the memory of Aranhrod's pained and humiliated expression. His quiet moment is interrupted when Grand Duke Rourke suddenly appears before him. Rourke notes that Silas looks busy, commenting that he heard the Duke didn't plan on visiting the capital. Silas confirms this. In a surprising turn, Rourke admits a sense of regret that they weren't closer, calling them kindred spirits. Silas deflects, saying there must be plenty of others who see things Rourke's way. But Rourke disagrees, stating such people are rare. He slowly draws his blade, his gaze turning cold. He explains that he likes people like Silas, those who know their place and can distinguish when to step forward and when to stay far away. As a final, chilling reminder, he compliments the fine sword Her Majesty provided, making his warning crystal clear. Duke Silas recalls the Emperor's tormented expression and finds his voice. He tells Rourke that his acts tormenting Her Majesty must cease at once. A slow, sinister smile spreads across Rourke's face. He finally has his confirmation. It was Silas, after all. Rourke casually tosses the Duke his own sword, ordering him to draw it. He explains his twisted logic. If they spar, then even if Silas ends up seriously injured, Rourke can simply tell the Emperor it was an accident. Silas is stunned by the cold threat, but Rourke doesn't wait for a response. He lunges, and their blades clash in a shower of sparks. The fight is brutally short. With overwhelming force, Rourke disarms Silas, sending his sword spinning through the air before it clatters onto the stone ground. Looming over the defeated Duke, Rourke expresses his disappointment. He remarks that he misjudged Silas, having mistaken him for a man who understood reason and knew his place. The sharp steel of Rourke's blade rests ominously close to Silas's eye, a final, silent warning. With his blade at the ready, Silas clarifies he was merely waiting for the right time to step forward. Rourke scoffs at the notion. Their spar resumes with brutal speed. Blades clash in a shower of sparks, but the exchange is completely one-sided. Rourke's overwhelming skill quickly leaves Silas with a fresh injury, forcing him to his knees. Looming over the defeated Duke, Rourke declares that the only useful thing Silas can do now is get on his horse and leave for his precious lands. Even while injured, Silas finds his voice, stating Rourke should not be by the Emperor's side. Rourke smirks, wiping a speck of blood from his own cheek. He coldly asks if Silas believes he could take his place, questioning if he could truly be of any help to her. His eyes flash a menacing red as he delivers the final verdict. Silas's only real service to Aranhrod is to disappear for good. Rourke's final verdict hangs in the air. He sends Duke Silas's sword flying back to him with one last command: leave the capital and never come back. Catching his blade, Silas hardens his expression. He agrees, stating that leaving is what Her Majesty would truly want, choosing her safety over his position. Rourke coldly confirms that the Duke now understands perfectly. Just then, Aranhrod rushes out, demanding to know what is going on. Rourke's demeanor shifts instantly, and he calmly apologizes for the commotion. But her eyes lock onto a fresh wound on his cheek. As she reaches out in concern, a swift, sharp motion sends her spinning away from him. Stunned into silence, she finally sees the grim aftermath. A doctor is tending to a serious injury on Silas's shoulder, a clear result of the one-sided spar. Aranhrod can only stand frozen, trembling beside Rourke. He has once again proven his absolute control, leaving her utterly defeated and alone. As the sun sets, Duke Silas answers the Emperor's summons. With her back to him, Aranhrod asks about the injuries he received from Rourke. Silas quietly assures her they are fine and begins to apologize for the trouble, but she cuts him off. Her frustration finally boils over as she confronts him. She demands to know what he was thinking, starting a fight with a man like the Grand Duke right inside her palace. She points out the danger of his actions. Both could have been gravely wounded due to his recklessness. Her anger then takes a sharp, personal turn. She accuses him of seeking revenge against her, questioning if her order to stay away was so unbearable that he felt the need to disrespect her authority. Hurt by the accusation, Silas looks utterly defeated. With tears in his eyes, he swears he has never, not even for a moment, looked down on Her Majesty. As Duke Silas finishes his tearful denial, Aranhrod can't listen anymore. She quietly tells him to stop, her earlier anger now completely gone. Watching her, Silas thinks the whole situation is strange. He sees her lashing out not as true anger, but as a form of hopeless, meaningless resistance. A grim reality settles in. He knows he can never defeat the Grand Duke, and Aranhrod cannot rule the Empire without him. The realization that she has been bearing this impossible burden all by herself makes his heart ache. He gently takes her hand, making a solemn promise that he will never do anything she does not want. He then pleads with her, asking that if she ever finds herself in anguish, she should come to him for help. But even as he speaks, Silas recognizes how unrealistic and pathetic his words must sound, offering comfort he might not be able to provide. Despite her hopeless situation, Duke Silas makes a surprising offer. He tells Aranhrod that if her position as emperor is too difficult, she can abandon it and come to him. She questions if he is actually suggesting she give up the throne. He explains that if she's suffering because of a role she never wanted, it would be better to just discard it. But Aranhrod's resolve is absolute. She states that no matter who put her on the throne, she will not be the one to descend from it. Silas tries a different tactic, bluntly warning her that the Grand Duke doesn't care for her and will abandon her for a more interesting diversion. Unimpressed, Aranhrod asks what would really change if she went with him. The person controlling her would simply switch from the Grand Duke to him. In the end, her circumstances would be the same. She presses further, asking if he can truly promise that as time passes, he wouldn't start wanting more from her, just like everyone else. Aranhrod coldly dismisses his naive plan, asking if he truly expects her to give up everything just for his sake. Standing firm, she declares that she will treat everything that happened between them as if it never occurred. To enforce this, she issues a harsh command. Duke Silas is forbidden from entering the capital until she permits it. Bowing his head, Silas accepts her judgment. He doesn't ask for forgiveness, but leaves her with a final, desperate plea. He reminds her his offer remains valid, that there is always a place for her to escape to. He departs, leaving Aranhrod to watch from the window, completely alone once more. Later, as she sits in exhausted silence, a voice breaks the silence. Grand Duke Rourke has appeared from nowhere, demanding to know what she and Silas talked about. Startled, Aranhrod quickly lies, claiming they merely exchanged farewells. Rourke turns away, repeating her words with cold disbelief. It's obvious he doesn't buy her story for a second. Rourke's expression hardens as he asks if she takes him for a fool. He reminds Aranhrod that her own servants are his eyes and ears, so he knows she isn't telling him the truth. His voice drops, accusing her of trying to deceive him, so she could go to Silas. As he looms over her, she weakly begs him to stop, but he ignores her plea. With a cruel twist, he admits he's surprised she had the skill to charm the Duke. Aranhrod flatly denies seducing anyone. Rourke dismisses her words, stating that her past actions make it impossible for him to trust her now. Hurt, she appeals to her position, declaring she is the Empress before she is a woman. But Rourke simply grabs her hand, his gaze intense. He tells her she's already done it once before. He claims she seduced him and used that connection to rise all the way to the throne, leaving her stunned and speechless. Rourke's accusation hits her like a physical blow. He claims she's already done this before, that she used her charms on him to climb all the way to the throne. Aranhrod is left completely speechless, her mind flooding with dark, symbolic images of her lonely rule. The Grand Duke's words cut deep, and a bitter self-loathing consumes her. She silently agrees with his harsh judgment, believing she truly is a woman of low morals who traded her dignity for the crown. She wonders how Silas could have possibly fallen for her, concluding that he must have seen her as nothing more than a shameless woman who drives men to madness. Tears finally stream down her face as the weight of her despair becomes too much to bear. Seeing her break down, Rourke seems momentarily startled, calling out her title. But as she begins to crumble, he closes the distance, pulling her into a harsh and possessive embrace, silencing her with his overwhelming presence. Aranrod finally shatters. Through her tears, she demands to know why he is so angry. She reminds him of his own cruel words, that he accused her of being skilled at charming men and wanting Duke Silas. In her despair, she almost dares him to confirm his suspicions. But her defiance quickly collapses into utter exhaustion. She begs him to stop, admitting that he has already won their eternal battle. Aranrod confesses she has neither the will nor the ability to oppose him any longer. Completely broken, she sinks to her knees, desperately clutching his hand and pleading for him to show her mercy. With nothing left to fight for, she looks up and agrees to accept his request. A heavy silence hangs in the air as Rourke stares down at her. He then coldly states that, in his opinion, he has already shown her more than enough mercy, twisting the knife in her heart one final time. Rourke looms over the broken empress, his eyes glowing with a chilling light. He mockingly asks what form of mercy she expects this time, stating there isn't much new he has left to offer. As Aranrod remains frozen on the floor, he gently lifts her hand to his lips, then delivers a stunning blow. He proposes marriage. Aranrod can only stare, speechless with shock. He then lays out his twisted reasoning, explaining that their union would place the entire, powerful Grand Duchy of Rourke under her control. This, he declares, should be more than enough generosity to satisfy her. He admits he's tired of sneaking around like a thief to claim what he feels is rightfully his. In a masterful stroke of manipulation, he frames the proposal as a way for her to finally claim what's hers, solidifying his control under the guise of a gift. Rourke smirks, coldly dismissing her words as lies. He continues his twisted proposal, asking what she could possibly be so afraid of. He frames the marriage as a mutually beneficial arrangement. They both need a partner, and it will put an end to the nasty rumors about her. In a chilling tone, he suggests that once they are husband and wife, their new life might even be enjoyable. He then pulls her into a firm embrace, and Aranrod seems to freeze, completely trapped. Her mind drifts away from the suffocating present and back to a painful memory. Lost in the past, she whispers his old name, Enoch. She recalls a time when her love was pure and selfless. She remembers confessing her feelings, promising that he never had to pretend to love her back. All she ever wanted was to be the one to protect him from the world, to keep him from being tormented, and to finally make him happy. As Rourke holds her tight, Aranrod looks up at him, her voice trembling. Despite everything, she confesses she still loves the man he once was, promising to be the one who protects him now. Yet, even as she says the words, a silent vow forms in her mind. This time, she will not be fooled by his games. Rourke's expression is unreadable, his grip firm and unwavering. But this brief moment of strength quickly dissolves into utter despair. The chilling reality of her situation crashes down on her. Aranrod finally understands there is no escape. No matter what she does, nothing will ever change, and no one can save her from this fate. She must now accept her life for what it is, a permanent position by his side, completely and utterly alone in a beautiful, hellish prison. Rourke's embrace sends Aranrod spiraling into a painful memory. She's back on a dark, rainy night, witnessing a terrible accident and screaming Enoch's name, begging him to wake up. The memory then cuts to a quiet room where she sits by his bedside. When his eyes finally flutter open, relief washes over her, but it's immediately followed by tears. Confused, Enoch gently asks why she's crying. She confesses that she almost lost him, blaming herself completely for his serious injuries. He tries to comfort her, saying he's fine as long as she is safe. But his soft tone can't stop the tragedy that follows. He asks about her parents. Aranrod delivers the devastating news. Her mother perished in the accident, and her father remains unconscious. Her voice breaks as she admits he is the only one she has left in the world. He pulls her close, his expression grim as he makes her promise never to do something so dangerous again. In the depths of her memory, a younger, Weeping Aranhrod holds Enoch's hand and confesses that he is her lover. For Enoch, this is a turning point. He realizes his feelings for the princess have changed. Her grief is too raw, too genuine. He understands that no one would throw their life away for a person they plan to betray. Her sorrow is not a performance, it's real. He leans in, comforting her about the tragic loss of her parents. He assures her that her father, the emperor, will certainly recover. His words give her a fragile piece of hope. She agrees, believing her mother would not want her to be lost in sorrow forever. Finding a sliver of strength, she thinks that if she can hold on, her father will recover. With gratitude, she softly thanks Enoch. The tender memory dissolves as, back in the present, a voice cuts through the haze, calling out her name, Aranhrod. The memory shifts. Aranhrod speaks with her brother, Ruazen. He asks if she has been reading to their father, and she confirms that the emperor still doesn't recognize her, though he seems to enjoy her voice. Changing the subject, Ruazen brings up Enoch. He notes that everyone, even the maids, is impressed by her dedication to nursing the man injured protecting her. Aranhrod clarifies that while Enoch's life is no longer in danger, his leg is still badly hurt. Her brother then says something that stuns her. He explains that their parents always wanted her to be happy, and he intends to honor that wish. He proposes restoring Enoch's title and lands, and even revisiting their marriage. A fragile hope blooms in Aranhrod's eyes, but Ruazen adds a condition. Simply saving Enoch isn't enough to restore his honor. First, he must prove his worth and earn military merit on the battlefield. This was the plan later twisted into a story of betrayal. Aranhrod is stunned by her brother's condition. She asks what he means by sending Enoch to the battlefield, protesting that the man has only just woken up. Ruazen clarifies that he doesn't mean immediately, but only after Enoch has fully recovered. Still, Aranhrod refuses, declaring she would never allow such a thing. Her brother's tone becomes firm. He reminds her that even if Enoch is now merely a servant, she cannot decide his future for him. He suggests they discuss it again later, leaving a conflicted Aranhrod alone with her thoughts. Later, she spots Enoch outside, slowly making his way forward on a crutch. She calls his name and rushes to his side, telling him to be careful not to hurt himself. He explains that he needs to start practicing his walking if he wants to get better faster. As she looks at the determined man, her brother's chilling words about earning military merit on the battlefield echo in her mind. The thought fills her with a quiet dread. As Aranhrod supports Enoch, she softly tells him not to push himself too hard, confessing she's just happy to have him by her side. He stops, a bit uncomfortable, stating that a servant shouldn't be supported by their master. Dismissing his concern, Aranhrod pulls him closer. She insists their titles don't matter and promises that no matter what happens, she will always love him. Looking into his eyes, she begs him never to leave her. But her desperate love is twisted by fear. Her brother's plan to send Enoch to war echoes in her mind. A terrible, selfish thought forms. She would rather his leg never fully heal if it meant he could stay safe with her. She is horrified by this ugly part of herself. Elsewhere, another nobleman asks Aranhrod's brother, Ruazen, why he allows her to see that traitor. A sinister smile plays on Ruazen's lips. He calmly replies that they should leave it for now, thinking to himself that if they play their cards right, they can use this situation to finally get rid of Enoch for good. After Aranhrod's emotional confession, she leaves Enoch alone in his sparse quarters. He sits on the edge of his bed, crutch in hand, replaying her words in his mind. He senses that something significant is unfolding, a feeling that leaves him deeply unsettled. Suddenly, a series of knocks breaks the silence. A voice from outside calls his full name, Enoch Rourke, and requests a moment of his time. When Enoch asks who is there, the door swings open. A confident, blonde nobleman steps inside. Enoch, not recognizing the man, asks for his identity. The visitor, Aranhrod's brother Ruazen, greets him with a knowing smile, remarking that it's been a while. He then formally presents himself, offering his respects as the crown prince, the so-called son of the empire. The atmosphere in the room immediately shifts as the two rivals finally meet, their reflections captured in the glass of a nearby lantern, setting the stage for a tense confrontation. Enoch immediately asks if the crown prince can restore his title and lands. With a confident smile, Ruazen confirms he can, provided Enoch is willing to pay the price. His offer is a dangerous one. Enlist and earn military merit on the Western Front. Enoch's expression hardens. He knows exactly what that means. It is a brutal, unforgiving battlefield, a place where the empire's most dangerous criminals are sent as a final punishment. It's a land known for its extremely low survival rate. For every 100 soldiers sent, barely 2 or 3 ever return alive. But Ruizan sees this not as a death sentence, but as a unique opportunity. He explains that precisely because it is so deadly, anyone who manages to survive and return is hailed as the Empire's greatest hero, no matter their past. He leans in, appealing to Enoch's pride and reminding him of his noble heritage. Surely, a man of his standing doesn't want to spend the rest of his life as a mere servant. The Crown Prince tries a different angle, claiming Aranhrod wouldn't want this fate for him. Enoch quietly states that becoming her servant was her own decision. Ruizan challenges this logic, reminding Enoch that he can't remain a servant forever, especially once Aranhrod has a husband. As shattered images of their past appear, Ruizan points out that no husband would tolerate his wife's former lover lingering nearby. Unmoved, Enoch clenches his fist. He vows to serve her for the rest of his life if she wishes it, seeing it as the only way to repay his debt to her. Ruizan's expression turns to one of pure contempt. He internally fumes, finally understanding his father's disdain for the man before him. He sees Enoch as worthless and refuses to let him have the princess. As the conversation ends, Ruizan's final words hang in the air, cruelly twisting the situation. He tells Enoch that it's Aranhrod's own tender heart that is driving her devoted servant to a certain doom. Later, Aranhrod finds Enoch and asks if he accepted her brother's offer to go to the Western Front. When he admits he hasn't given an answer yet, she immediately tells him to refuse. Upset, she questions why her brother would even suggest such a thing. Trying to rationalize it, she supposes her brother is just worried and feels he has to act in their parents' place. She asks Enoch not to be too upset, believing that even if Ruizan's methods were harsh, his suggestion was made because he cares about them. But Enoch knows the truth. He has always seen the cruel and greedy man hiding behind the prince's mask. He remembers how Aranhrod's brothers constantly tried to separate them. Ruizan's words haunt him, the reminder that no future husband would allow his wife's former lover to remain her servant. Enoch believes wanting anything more is beyond his station. He feels she deserves a highborn, reliable man who could protect her without the same twisted feelings he carries. As Aranhrod considers the kind of man she deserves, someone noble and unlike Enoch, she is suddenly pulled into a close embrace. This intimacy catches her completely off guard, and in a daze, she whispers Enoch's name. Her words snap him out of the moment. He pulls back, his eyes glowing red with confusion as he asks her what's wrong. He quickly apologizes for being so forward. Aranhrod, flustered, takes his hands and reassures him that she was just surprised by his action. But the mood has already shifted. Enoch looks at her with a new intensity. He asks a critical question. If he were to follow her brother's suggestion, go to war, and earn back his original noble status, would she then consider his proposal? He imagines a future where he could finally stand by her side not as a servant, but as a husband, asking if she would marry him. Stunned by his marriage proposal, Aranhrod can only ask what he's saying. The reality of his plan sinks in, and she questions if he seriously intends to go to the battlefield, wondering if she would ever truly allow that. Enoch admits that he knows it's dangerous, but he feels there's no other way. Panicked, Aranhrod grabs his arm, asking if he's really willing to gamble his life just for the sake of honor. But Enoch clarifies his true motive. It's not about honor. He tells her this is the only path he sees to truly stay with her. She desperately insists that he's already with her and that she is fine with things as they are. But Enoch challenges her, asking if he really wants him to remain her servant forever. The question hangs in the air, leaving Aranhrod speechless. The thought of losing him again is too much. She begins to say that if something happened to him, she wouldn't be able to bear it. Sensing her distress, Enoch suddenly stands, cutting the conversation short. He apologizes and asks her to pretend they never spoke of it. As the heavy conversation ends, Enoch rushes out, leaning on his cane for support. He calls for the Emperor, but his voice is laced with frustration as he curses the impossible situation. He feels trapped, and his recent attempt to find a solution has only made things worse. Elsewhere, in a lavish study, two powerful noblemen are deep in conversation. One paces the room, anxious that he may have inadvertently encouraged Aranhrod. He reveals that the Emperor has been spending her days researching legal precedents, desperately searching for a case where a traitor's family had their status restored. His colder, more calculating brother scoffs at the news. He tells the other to calm down, insisting Aranhrod will never succeed in pardoning Enoch. He He's certain she doesn't have the nerve to actually send the man she loves to war. His plan is simple: leave them alone. He cynically predicts that their complicated feelings will eventually lead them to destroy each other, and he warns his brother not to interfere. A sudden knock interrupts a late-night conversation between two noble brothers. One is startled, but before he can react, Emperor Aranhrod steps into the room. Surprised by her visit, he asks why she has come at such an hour. Aranhrod looks resolved, stating she has something important to tell them. Later, the three sit together in a heavy silence. The calmer of the two brothers speaks up, deciding that he cannot send the son of Grand Duke Rourke to the battlefield. His sibling scoffs, asking if this means Enoch himself is refusing to go. Aranhrod remembers Enoch's desperate question: did she truly want him to remain her servant forever? Her expression hardens. She announces that Enoch will follow her wishes completely. Even if he doesn't earn his merits through war, she declares that she has found another way. Confused, the brother asks what she means. Aranhrod clenches her fist, acknowledging that without exceptional service, restoring Enoch's status is considered impossible. Aranhrod quietly admits her true motivation. She doesn't care if Enoch ever becomes a Grand Duke again. All she wants is for him to be free from his pain and find happiness, even with the most insignificant noble title. A brief memory of them together in a forest under the moonlight strengthens her resolve. Back in the tense meeting with the two brothers, she announces her plan. She will buy back his status. If an imperial title is impossible, then a foreign one will have to do. The calmer of the two brothers is stunned, asking what she could possibly mean. He reminds her that Enoch's crime was treason, not petty theft. Even her immense fortune wouldn't be enough to pardon such a serious offense. But Aranhrod has a hidden card. She reveals that before his passing, her father left her valuable territories and a gold mine. She declares firmly that she will use all of it. The brother is shocked that she would give up so much for a servant, but Aranhrod simply says she doesn't mind, her expression filled with a sorrowful determination. One of the noble brothers reflects on Aranhrod's foolishness. While he expected her devotion, he is surprised she would give up her entire fortune so easily. A new plan forms in his mind. Thanks to her wealth, he can secure even greater authority for himself. He could just give Enoch some meaningless title and send him far away for good. This moment triggers a memory from the past. A much younger Princess Aranhrod stands before her brother, resolute. She announces her intention to marry Enoch. Her brother is initially stunned, then erupts in anger, scolding her for forgetting her position as an imperial princess and questioning the sense in marrying a man whose status was secured with money. But the young Aranhrod doesn't back down. She declares that if being a princess is the problem, then she will renounce her royal status entirely. As an image of a shattered royal seal appears, she asks him if that would be enough to satisfy him, leaving him completely shocked by her unwavering determination.